Everything okay? I just had something else.
Yeah, I was at my job. Good evening. Good evening. I want to call this meeting to order. It's a regular meeting of the City Council for Walton Beach on Tuesday, August 27th. If you have a cell phone, if you'd please turn it off and put it on vibrate, I'd really appreciate that. And then if you'll stand with me, please, Dr. Jonathan Winningham from First Baptist Church of Mary Esther is going to lead us in an invocation. And please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Reverend, it's yours.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, sir.
Father God, we come to you humbly. Thank you for the model in front of us. In God we trust. God, we thank you for your word. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Acknowledge you in all of our ways, and you will direct our paths. So we thank you that you are here, God, available to us to provide guidance and wisdom and insight that's needed. Thank you for all who have come tonight to participate. Thank you for those who serve us in leadership. Thank you for our great city and the wonderful things we enjoy here. And having lived here 6 years, thank you for all that is being done around us and for us. Much we see, and then a lot that we do not see. But we thank you for those who serve publicly and also in obscurity. So God, we thank you. We ask for guidance tonight. Again, we thank you for the things to be discussed. We pray that things will be done in an orderly way and a constructive and productive way, and that we'll all be glad that we came and participated in this free exercise, which is guaranteed, provided in our wonderful country's constitution and even state constitutions and cities. So we feel blessed to be here. Thank you for those who serve. Continue to encourage them to carry out faithful service ahead. Again, thank you for this time together. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we get on with item 4, approval of the agenda, I need to move item 10.5 from tonight's meeting, and we're going to postpone that till September 24th at the 4 p.m. meeting. If you'll remove item 10.5 from the agenda, then I'll be ready to take a motion to accept.
Mayor, would it also be possible to move item 10.1 up right after the mayor and council comments, or public comments, I'm sorry?
We can certainly do that. I think a lot of the folks here this evening are here most
Yes,
interested in that. So we could move, with council's permission, we could move 10.1 to right after item 7, even before public comments. We can do that.
Mayor, I've moved to approve the agenda with those changes. Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilman Allegretto, seconded by Councilman Meade to approve the agenda as amended. Further comment?
Yes, sir.
Comment? Council, please vote. Does pass unanimously with all members present this evening. That'll bring us to item 5, recognitions. This is city employee recognition time. Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Mayor. Once a month at one of the meetings, we like to bring up our employees and recognize them that meet the 5-year increments with the city. Some this month are 5 years, up to 10. We've had some that are 35 and even 40 years in years past. But I'd like to call their names out. Some of them won't be here tonight, but others are. So I'll call them out. If they're here, please come up. And if not, we'll give them a round of applause and we'll make sure that the director gets them their plaques. So the first one, Mike Krajak, the golf course attendant, 10 years. Wendy Riggs, 10 years. Police officer David Beck, 5 years. Police Officer Morgan Sterling, 5 years. And Survey Chief, 5 years, Tommy Benoit. And we do have one special one tonight, and I'll bring Chief Page, he's over there, but we'd like to bring up Deputy Chief Mark Hayes, 24 years with the City of Fort Walton Beach Police Department, and he has accepted the position as Police Chief for the City of Niceville. We couldn't be more happier for him and his family. It just shows what type of great officers we have, that other cities are stealing them from us. But we do wish you all the best, Mark.
So that's your retirement plaque from the city, and this is your retirement box from the police department. So they wanted to give you a little memento to hang up there at Niceville. You can remember the 24 years of service you had here at Fort Walton Beach Police Department. We'd all like to thank you for the 24 years of service you had here with the city of Fort Walton Beach.
Thank you.
Wow.
Appreciate it.
You'll be missed.
Congratulations.
Jeff, since they're stealing him, can we arrest them?
Thank you, everybody. That'll bring us to item 6, our consent agenda. If I have a motion, please.
I'd like to pull item 6.8. Other than that, motion to approve the consent agenda, but just pull 6.8 for discussion.
Okay.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to, I pulled item 6.8 from the consent agenda for discussion. Other than that, we would pass all the remaining items 6.1 through 6.9 minus 6.8, correct?
Yes, sir.
Further comments? Council, please vote. Thus passed unanimously. Thank you, council. And we'll do that 6.8 after we do public comments. How's that?
Perfect.
All right, now that brings us to mayor and council comments, and I'm going to ask, because this is going to be anticipated to be a very long meeting, that you try to keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. And I'll start with you, Travis.
Save mine for the end, Mayor.
Okay.
Same here.
All right.
Ten.
Okay. Mr. Berry? Save them?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Jeter?
Save for the end.
That was really quick. I'm going to take my 2 minutes right now and only say that I was at the Florida League of Cities conference in Hollywood 2 weeks ago, and the good news is we elected Mark Franks, the mayor of Shalimar, as the second vice president of the Florida League of Cities. What that really means is he'll serve 1 year as second vice president, move up to first vice president the following year, and in 2026 he will be the president of the Florida League of Cities. So we will be very, very well represented in the league. So glad I went, glad I cast my vote, glad Mark won. So that's it for me. That'll bring us to item 10.0, which 10.1, excuse me, on action, direction, and discussion. Renewal of the ground lease at 20 Robinwood Drive Southwest from the crew of Bull Lakes. Mr. Peters.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this item is on the agenda tonight. It's the Bull Lakes crew. The property on Robinwood was originally leased many years ago. It's recently, the lease expired, and it was deemed in the lease agreement that it had to come back from council for renegotiation. That's what they are here for tonight. So all the information is in the backup, and I know the Bull Lakes crew is here tonight to negotiate the lease, and which was originally set by, I don't know, Mark, but the market rate was set by Mark Bethay, and it's on the agenda tonight for discussion.
All right. Thank you very much. I know there's several here from the crew to offer their comments. Can we get just one or two of you to make the comments instead of all of you? Great. So if somebody would like to stand up and speak, we're ready to listen.
Good afternoon, council members and mayor. Thank you for your time. I am Michael Castleberry. I live at 311 Yacht Club Drive here in Fort Walton Beach, and I am the captain Billy Bolegs for the 2024-2025 year. I'm here tonight to ask about the land lease at 20 Robinwood Drive to be considered at $1,500 per year, which is roughly a 175% increase over its current rate, and not at the suggested 500 to 600% increase that was suggested. Reasons for consideration. As you know, the crew of Bolegs stores their floats at this metal building, of which 5 or 6 of them roll at each of the local parades. We also store about $40,000 worth of beads and cups that the crew personally pays for at this location and throws at the majority of the city's parades. Also, throughout the years at this location, we have battled the flooding of raw sewage, which did not come up on that report, from the lift station that is next door. We also have helped maintain the parcel next door, the vacant parcel, over the last couple of years due to the increasing number of homeless people living in the woods. And many times our members have had to go out and clean up after all of these people and these individuals when they are kicked out of there. As you know, our organization does a lot for this community. We have over a $325,000 budget this year, which is spent majority right here in this city. Plus the last festival weekend that we had in May, we had over 150 out-of-town guests who stayed here for a minimum of 5 to 7 days. Most of you already know that a large majority of our members live right here in the city of Fort Walton Beach, and much like myself, we also have businesses here in the city as well. In my closing, I would like to propose that we meet in the middle of the road on a new 10-year lease, at which we're asking for $1,500 per year on the lease. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good evening. Matt Turpin, 224 Yacht Club Drive. I get the pleasure, I think, of being the first mate this year. And the crew of Bolegs and the city have had a great partnership for almost 70 years. And being able to store the 6 floats that we have that go in the Christmas parade, the Mardi Gras parade, and the Torchlight parade for the festival, it's very helpful to store those inside as opposed to in the open air. So I would just ask, as you can see, and I know you've received a number of emails this week about it, I ask that you consider $1,500 a year, and then we can continue this partnership with the city of Fort Walton Beach.
Thank you, sir. Anyone not on the crew wish to have a comment? Council, it's open for discussion.
Before I begin interacting, I am a member, for disclosure, I am a member of the crew of Bolegs, but it's my understanding from our city attorney that I do not have a conflict since there won't be any financial gain or loss regardless of the outcome of this.
Right.
So I will be participating in the discussion and the vote.
All right. Thank you, sir. Ready? Mr. Jeter.
I emailed some of you guys back, and I don't know who would be best to answer it, but the date being moved, what was the reason the date got moved from June to May, and why it hadn't gone back yet, or how's that? Who's in charge of the date?
So during 2020, you all know what happened that year, there was no festival weekend. So in years past, the Greater Fort Walton Beach Chamber of Commerce have run the Friday night, Saturday night, or Saturday, and the Torchlight Parade on Monday. The Chamber of Commerce pulled away from the Friday night and Saturday events and only run the Torchlight Parade. As you know, we've all been in parades. There's a lot of logistics that go to that. We approached the subject this year of trying to move it back to June, and the Chamber did not want to manage the Torchlight Parade on Monday night in June. So that's why it has not been moved back yet. It started because of COVID. it's not my decision to move it back, but it's a group decision, and
Any specific reason why the chamber doesn't want to move the parade back to June? What's their reason for?
I can't speak for the chamber, so I don't know. I'd be more than willing to ask that, and me and you were going back and forth in emails today, and I would love to work with the city to see if that's even possible.
Yeah, because I know I grew up, I'm gonna give one of your stories here. I grew up on Okaloosa Island, and when I first moved down here, it was a huge water gun fight, and there was kids everywhere, and we had a blast. There was hundreds, if not thousands, of boats out there. And my parents' dock is 10 feet from it, and I've just seen it go. I think there was maybe 5-10 boats out there this year. I mean, it's gone, some parts of it have gone downhill.
Correct.
Some of it's great, but some of it's gone downhill. So just curious to see what we can,
I think everyone, I can't speak for everyone in the crew, but I know personally, and I know several would welcome that conversation to move it back.
And I'm sure there's more involved, but yeah, whatever
Good.
we can do to make that happen. Like at TDC this morning, I guess there's $5,000 the TDC gave you guys, but they said some of the stipulations is your event's got to be outside of Memorial Day to Labor Day.
That's been worked on, is that right? Yeah, okay.
I mean, hopefully that's not the number one reason we're keeping it in May is for $5,000.
No.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay.
There's also the 8,000 for security and police.
Yeah, I mean, there is, it costs, I think, roughly $8,000 for the security police for water, on the water. It's not a cheap event.
Yeah. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll comment on that if you want to.
Go ahead.
The biggest problem that we had with having the festival, it originally started out in Labor Day, by the way. Then it was moved to the second week of June. But the Coast Guard, and I was in the meetings, the Coast Guard, the Marine Patrol, the city of Fort Walton was there, the chamber was there, and the sheriff's department were there. They wanted bow legs out of the summer. And the biggest reason bow legs didn't fight it and stuff like that, because the price of all the condos and stuff. We have 150, we used to have 200, out of town guests, renting rooms, stuff like that. And they couldn't afford it. It got so expensive. So then, Buddy Carter's year, we went to the May 1st, and it was just too cold for the out-of-towners. Water was too cold, stuff like that. And I met with the mayor and the city and the chamber. We decided on the weekend after Mother's Day every year. And since 21, which is the year I was captain, it has taken off. We've had great crowds. Now, as far as the flotilla, nobody wants the flotilla because the Coast Guard cannot shut down the Intercoastal Waterway anymore. And they can't protect Crab Island and the landing. So they just basically said, no, we're not gonna shut it down, they're against it. And if you go to the past 3 years festivals, all they did was pull over everybody, looking for people drinking underage and all that, which is good, but they were boarding boats too. So they're not interested in moving it back into the summer. And so we all met and we decided on the weekend after Mother's Day. So, to answer your question.
Interesting. That answers it. Thank you.
Thank you for that background. Any other comments from the public? Council, I will leave it for your debate.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to instruct the city manager to negotiate a lease at the lease rate recommended by our real estate professional. I guess I gotta wait for a second.
Second.
All right, been moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Schmidt. For the remainder of your sentence.
Yes, sir. Bowleg City has always had a great relationship. The reason I'm making this specific motion right here is a couple of years ago, we sold you guys a piece of property, taxpayer piece of property, at a huge discount versus what it was worth. So my kind of feeling on it is the city taxpayers have already donated essentially $200,000 in equity in a piece of property towards the Bolex group. I got to be honest with you, I was kind of when I looked at this originally, I thought we were talking about a month, not a year. And you know, I was kind of surprised this was even in front of us. I understand the 500% increase in this and that, everything else, but you know, we're sitting here talking about $1,500 over the span of a whole year, and you know, I don't think that that's something that, in my opinion, that is really gonna make that big of a difference one way or another to you guys, or really to us. But the big thing for the city side, who I represent in this, is I believe that the taxpayers have already given $200,000 worth of equity in a piece of property to Bolex. So that's the reason why I have made the motion that I have.
Can I address that?
Mr. Walker?
Yeah, thank you, Travis. And similar on those lines, I like to investigate stuff. Mike and I spoke earlier, and like Travis said, I thought we were talking about per month. And then when I found that it was per year, I'm like, really, what are we even doing here over, it's your money, $1,500 is real, but over a year seems pretty small in the scheme of things. So I appreciate the vigor that you and your membership have taken to email us all with the email that they did, and it caused me to look into it all a little bit deeper. And I'm like, well, I wonder how they were impacted, that building. John Lightsey, is that his name? Lightsey. That's you, sir?
Yes.
Thank you for your response on that. I didn't know. I went to the tax records and tried to find the size of that building. Jeff, what do we have on the size of that building? Do you know that they're in?
The square footage?
Yeah.
I do not.
Okay, it's not in the tax records, so that's why I couldn't find it either. It's neither, to my surprise, well, I guess it's to my new understanding, it's not on the city tax roll, and it's not on the county tax roll either. So there is no taxes being assessed on that property. And with that being said, as part of the, if we need to amend the motion, add to it, or whatever else, the lease that's been drawn up for us to consider, obviously the price is a big part of it for you guys that brought you here, but there really needs to be no, Kim can talk to it or anyone else, there's several paragraphs in there that talk about taxes on the property. There are no taxes on the property. So I would say that that either be stricken or addressed if taxes are due in the future, because it's talking about what y'all got to do about paying taxes. You're not paying taxes. So I know that's a part. Right, and then when I was looking at, and back to Mr. Lysett, again, thank you for that, because I didn't know, and there was none provided in the background yet, that showed you guys built the building there. If it was in the background, I missed it, I apologize, but I didn't find it yet. So I kept reading ground lease, but then there's a building on it. So I was trying to reconcile the two, and which brought me to my next step. I drove to the property, and I would further suggest that a part of this lease review will be contingent upon significant landscape cleanup on either side of the building. It's growing over the building. It looks really poor, and I know you guys don't want it to reflect poorly on the city, and it's attached to our property, so it's in desperate need of landscaping down both sides. It's probably, whether it's the homeless people, the snakes, rodents, or whatever else, would probably really enjoy the size of that building there. So I recommend that, whether it's a part of it or not, but it would look better on the city if the landscaping was cleaned up there. It's tremendously overgrown. I guess this question would be for Jeff. Jeff, this lease expired September of 23, is that right?
Yes.
And they've just been month to month?
Yeah, it was month to month, and we actually, back in April or May, I think we had it on an agenda, we bumped it and then kind of got through because they were changing guards there, so that's why it's on the agenda tonight.
Right. That's my business, is leasing business. That's why this one caught my attention. I wanted to see how things were flowing and how things were working. And that landscaping that I noticed would be typically something that I would do with one of my tenants. I'd go by and say, we're not going to renew, until you clean up that or do this or that. So didn't know if that's a common practice in the city before we renew leases. Does someone go inside the building, make sure everything's okay?
We've got a leasing agent, Mark Bethea does that.
He does that? Did he mention anything about the landscaping?
No, we got with him on the market rate.
Okay, and I saw that in the original lease and the subsequent leases, there were notification requirements about intent to renew, and I think it changed from like 60 days notice to now it's 120 days notice. When did Mark provide us the fair market value on it for them to consider?
It was months ago, and we had met with some of the Bull Age crew, and the property next to it, so back in 2003, 2004, 5, somewhere like that, 2005, when the initial agreement started, it was for 0.143 acres. They added the parcel next to it back in 2.8, that initially expired 2013 for the whole property right now. And then right now they're talking about releasing that second portion that they got.
And
So
on that second parcel as you're facing, is it to the left?
Yes.
That's a swamp. What were y'all playing, swamp games?
It is swamp.
I don't know why you ever wanted it.
You're more than welcome to have
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a swamp.
That's where all the
over
homeless people live.
there. I'm like, why would they want that land ever again?
We don't.
Right, okay, so, I mean, nobody else is gonna want it either, I don't believe, so.
That's one of the reasons.
Well, it was $600 a year, it's not, I mean, it was 300 and 300, so, you know, it's, you guys built the building after 2005, or?
In the 70s.
Yeah, it's the 71.
Okay. I got you. Okay, I was like, the lease, because it's quoted as the original lease 2005, but was there not a lease prior to 2005?
There could be. I wasn't here back
Okay.
then, but
Okay. That's all right. It now makes it clear to me that this is not the original lease, and when John responded that it was, y'all built it, I'm like, well, how did I know that without you responding? Thank you for that, so. That's all I got, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Could I,
Can I address it?
Wait till we hear from Mr. Allegretto, please.
I just, Mayor, wanted to clarify the motion that Mr. Smith made. Mr. Smith said that he would like to make a motion to have the lease be at what Mr. Bethea recommended. It says in the back of
Market
the-
rate,
Market rate.
whatever they figure out between 225 and 250, or 275.
So the motion is negotiated
Yes.
between 225 and 275.
Yep.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Mr. Meade?
As I mentioned before, I am a member. Other than being punctual and paying my dues, I haven't been to a meeting or a party in a really long time. But I do hold the crew in high esteem. By that, I mean not the individual members, but what it's done for our city, and it's mark on our city. I mean, there's a pirate ship behind us on our crest. The purchase that was done a number of years ago, that was not with the crew of Bolex. It was with a similar group of people, but two different entities, as I understand it. I won't support the motion. The building is surrounded by what has been referred to as swamp. The sanitation department's behind it, and it's used to house these floats that have been around for probably as long as I've been alive, if not longer. The members go down there and they mow. Apparently, they need to mow a little more frequently, and do a number of those things. So this is not a structure that income is derived from. They don't, to my knowledge, bring people from out of town and charge them to do things out of the building. To the contrary, they store things inside this building and use it to plan some of the events that help to give our city its character. We just met a very professional organization our last meeting on how to give our downtown character, how to provide character, what we are, who we are, where are we. We've helped a lot of number of organizations around the town with slightly below market rates to have various things that help the community. I believe this is one. I don't disagree about the sale of the property, but unfortunately that's not what's before us today. What's before us today is a different entity who's asking to meet in the middle of the road for what I feel to be an appropriate rate under the circumstances. So I won't support that. I would support the rate that they propose, which I believe they refer to as kind of a meet in the middle point. So,
Thank you, sir. Other comments from council? Mr. Smith?
Just to follow up, I understand that the William Augustus Bowles Foundation is technically who bought the property, but they are essentially one and the same. It's the same group of people, just different names. So my personal opinion is I view that the city taxpayers, is who I represent up here, has given $200,000 worth of equity to that group of people, regardless of whether it's called the Billy Bowlegs Crew or the William Augustus Bowles Foundation. So, you know, when I look at that and then I look at this, it only makes sense for me, because I didn't believe at that time that it made sense for us to sell below market, to be consistent with that.
Sure.
And it's kind of what I believe, and it's same as you said, we have other groups that have come in here and we have helped. And me and myself, I've been very consistent that we are using taxpayers' assets and we are giving special interest groups basically equity from the taxpayers. I don't believe that I would do it with my own. I don't believe that probably you would find hardly any business owner that would do, maybe not necessarily this deal, because this is more I guess principled than it is anything else at the dollar figure that we're talking about, because it's the money's ultimately really at the end of the day not the issue. That anybody else that comes in here, I'm going to say the same thing to, and I don't necessarily know that if it was any one individual's money that they would be saying that, yeah, we're going to give you a 50% market rate discount, or, you know, we're going to give you $200,000 in equity just because we like him, and stuff like that. So this is just me being consistent in what I think and how I feel, and whether it's Bowlegs or whether it's the Cats people or the, you know, the, who we sell the piece of property to, the Stagecrafters, I'm going to advocate for whatever the market rate is, because that's my responsibility as a representative for the taxpayers. So.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Allegretto?
So I really have enjoyed hearing the discussion, and I really appreciate everybody being here tonight as well. I always try to keep an open mind on things like this, and while I do certainly agree with Mr. Smith that it is our job to get the most value for our taxpayers, certainly I think that the market rate in this case is not necessarily what the market would bear. Now obviously that would be up for debate if the property were vacant and just building on it, and obviously we've heard highlighted all of the different challenges that exist with that property. Would it bring in you know, that amount of money of $275 a month for just the land? Who knows? Obviously there's a building on it now, so we'd probably never find that out. But at the same time, I do appreciate and value working with not-for-profit groups in our city, and I think that this group in particular have tried to meet us in the middle with the increase of, what was it, 150%, 175% at $1,500 a month. So it's not like they were saying, hey, we want to keep it the same, that we've kept it for all of these years. They are trying to work with us. And at the same time, you know, it's, as you said, not a significant amount of money one way or the other. I would rather make that up in the goodwill. So I'm not going to support the motion. I would rather see the motion at $1,500. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Watt?
Yeah,
I remember the same meeting Travis was talking about. I was sitting out there, Travis was up here. He was the one no vote on selling that. And to John's point, it was William Augustus Bowles that was up here looking for that building. And there was a real estate expert, same expert, gave us the valuation of it. And there was a motion made by a council member at the time that approved it to them out of goodwill because of all the good they do in the community. So they are both of the same organization doing good in the community, whether it's the parade or the executive group of William Augustus Bowles that helps you guys pull it all together. It's one and the same. But also at that same time, and many of Matt was a part of the chamber at the time, the fire assessment fee came out, and commercial buildings, which that one is, and we know how big the fire assessment fee became around here. And this year what was it, last year, later? We got rid of the fire assessment fee. It all kind of goes together. So, the commercial building that is, it never suffered the consequences of the fire assessment fee. Y'all didn't have to pay it, but it was a building. We passed the city passed the fire assessment fee on to vacant landowners because they said fire trucks would have to show up there. You guys didn't get it. I just think that the $1,500 request from a group that you guys are, which I'm in another group with you guys, I believe, All Sports Association, another community group, and there's no questions about our beads or our cups or anything else. We give $150,000 to $200,000 a year in direct compensation, gifting, granting to organizations in the community that we all cherish. I like a parade just like everyone else, but I'm not sure that I will. If you, for that and the benefits that have come by having that building, not paying taxes, not being hit by the fire assessment fee, while all the other business owners who provide great economic value to our community, they don't come up here and say, well, hey, we provide great economic value. Can you give me a discount on my taxes? They don't do that. They can't do that. And for All Sports to show up here and say, hey, we're a community organization. We want a free building. We want a free land. We don't want any taxes. We don't. We pay for our things. We rent the convention center every year and pay for all the meals, and we pay for. I know y'all have a good membership, and you have significant dues from what I remember back when I knew about them. So, I look forward for members of the community in that organization to step up and pay the additional $1,500 in a favorable way back to the city that's done. We've been mutually beneficial to each other. So the fair market value is whatever the real estate professional tells us it is, and that's why I'll be supporting this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Other comments, Mr. Gates?
We're here as council members to go from our experience in the past and where we currently are. As I mentioned, I am a member. I'm not a member of the William Augustus Bowles. I don't know that I've ever been to a meeting. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not. So from where I sit, I do consider them to be separate entities and different creatures. And to the point of the pricing and the amount that we're talking about every year, in my mind, this is the city saying, we're partners, we're working together, we appreciate what the crew does and brings to the city, and this is why we're meeting in the middle. So that's where I see it. I respect your position, but I still stick to mine, and I will not support the motion.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else on council? All right, council, the motion on the floor is to renegotiate or negotiate the lease rate set by our Mr. Bethea, our real estate representative, at near market rate or at market rate. Mr. Smith, correct me if I said
That's
that
correct.
wrong. Okay. All right, council, please vote. does pass 5-2. So we will be letting Mr. Bazay negotiate with you folks, and we'll see where that goes. Thank you for being here. All right, now that'll bring us to item 6.8, which is the award of RFP 24-012 for CRA seasonal decorations. Ms. Corcoran, that's yours, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do public comment after this discussion.
You want me to brief why I pulled it?
Pardon me?
You want me to brief why I pulled it?
Thank you, Mayor. This is our RFP for seasonal decorations for the downtown CRA area. That's all of our Christmas lights downtown, the Christmas tree at the landing, and also includes some seasonal flags that we have in the summer that go up Edmund Parkway.
Okay, Mr. Jeter.
And I love them. They're awesome. They brighten up downtown. They're beautiful. I've actually had people in years past say, "Oh, why don't we leave these up year round?" I know, I'm originally from Kentucky, and we had people that left their Christmas lights up year round on there. I grew up in a single wide, so not that, but we can actually, if you go to resorts now, they're wrapping palm trees year round. You go to South Florida, you go to Watercolor, their trees are wrapped year round, and I just was talking to Jeff earlier and doing the math, at 60,000 over the next 5 years, that's close to 300. I would love to hear everybody else's thoughts and opinions on, let's buy some really nice lighting. Not that what we put up is not nice, but let's put something up that we can do year round and leave it, make it red, white, and blue 4th of July, make it red and green for Christmas, and then make it white all the other days throughout the year. We've had a discussion earlier in a whole workshop about downtown and lighting and all this kind of stuff. I think it's beautiful, and I think we should, if we have time this year, I'm not sure if we have to get staff to see, but I would love to hear everybody else's thoughts on keeping the downtown trees wrapped year round. And again, with modern technology now and the way you can do it, you can have it off sometimes. It doesn't have to be on all the time. We can have it off. We can have it on just on the weekends. I mean, you can get good LED lighting and really do some fancy, cool stuff with it and make downtown vibrant more than just the holiday. So that's why I pulled it. I'd love to see that happen. Love to hear anybody else's thoughts on that. But
Mr. Allegretto.
I honestly don't know that I've heard a better idea in quite some time up here, and I mean that in all sincerity. I think it's a fantastic idea. And as to what Mr. Jeter said, with the time frame, maybe it's not something that we can do this year, but maybe we also don't enter into a 5-year, this is a 5-year contract, right? Maybe we don't enter into a 5-year contract, and maybe we just do this year while we're also working on exactly what Mr. Jeter said, because I think that is a really good idea. And long term, it would probably end up saving us money, or at least be the same cost, and provide year-round decoration that would look really nice for our city. And perhaps it's something that could potentially be expanded outside of just that area as well. Because that is such a good amount of money for 5 years. So I think it's a really great idea, and I'm 100% in favor of it.
Yeah, if the RFP is awarded tonight, we can work with the contractor and get different tenders.
We can. We would have time. It would be an additional cost. There would be probably more maintenance monthly if we had them year round, but we can work through all that. We can get a price for that.
yeah, and hopefully that monthly maintenance year round is going to offset the 60,000 putting them up and taking them down. So hopefully, could end up being cheaper in the long run. We'll have to find out.
And he's a good contractor that we've worked with for years, so it would be no problem at all for us to talk to him about a price for that.
Awesome.
Mr. Berry.
That's what I was going to ask. If we put it up and down, it's going to cost us more in the long run. And also using the LED lights or the inexpensive lights,
We would use LED lights. The price is for LEDs.
Especially the ones on down 98, the ones at the landing, as you guys all probably know, get hammered by the squirrels, the cords and everything. So that's kind of a maintenance nightmare to leave those up year round. But down the palms and stuff down 98.
where the trees are not there where the squirrels can go. Yeah.
Other comments from council?
Right, maybe Mr. Jeter mentioned it or Mr. Allegretto, but it's per year.
Correct.
Is 60 some odd thousand? Is that, I was trying to.
It is at 60, 60.
65 on a 5-year
5-year.
contract. I ain't doing the math. That's 325,000 for 5 years.
60,500.
Yeah.
I got you, 60,500, so 60, that's 300,000. 300,000 and some change.
Right.
So, for a 5-year on lighting. And yeah, if we can save some money by leaving them up, but salt air around here is tough on what people, ceiling fans, anything left outside gets tough. It gets tough, and I don't know if that's gonna be something that runs up the cost of the LEDs if we try to calculate that in, figure that in, and to avoid that, but otherwise, bringing them down or having the company store them, take them down, put them back up. That's what this includes right now, right?
Correct.
Taking them down.
And storing them.
Right, and storing them.
The
So-
purchase of the lights, the maintenance, they put them up, take them down, and store them.
Yeah. And Mr. Jeter, that idea of the wrapping the palm trees through a downtown like that looks great. And that could almost be a separate little line item in my mind. I wouldn't mind it being there, I just don't know if the same part of this, you know what I'm saying, for the money they've got in there. If they're gonna take them down and put them up and not expose them to salt air, we could probably do something cheap downtown on the palm trees, but, thank you.
Just a quick note to consider, my purchasing manager was communicating with me. If we change this, the bid pricing is based on 5 years. She says less than that, the price is going to go up. She said it substantially changes the scope and we'll have to go out to bid. If we don't.
Yeah, they
Just
spend,
an FYI.
yeah, they spend the money up front on the lights, but, I mean, if the seasonal decorations RFP 2412 is approved tonight, we can work with the contractor on, and even bring the price for additional lights on the palm trees or whatever at maybe even the next council agenda, as far as the ones that they put up and getting them ordered. We would ask for approval this evening, and we can bring back all the details on adding the addition of it.
Well, I was dealing with the Christmas lights tonight, and then the year-round lights in a separate RFP, perhaps.
Okay.
But, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
But approving this tonight puts us at a $300,000 commitment.
Yeah, for the lights for downtown, the landing, up, there's different locations on all that.
I mean, I'm kind of like Councilman Allegretto said, it would be nice to know what I get if you're only doing 1 year, they're going to charge you more money, but what is that, 75,000? I mean, maybe it's worth 75 instead of going all in on the full 300 and doing some research next year and seeing. So it'd just be nice to have options and know the difference.
I think it would be worth having a conversation with the contractor. There are certain lights that if we get now may last longer, that we would be able to do this year-round lighting. So I think it would be worth talking to them just to see what our options are. I know they do this for other cities year-round, so we could just see what they have for that.
So may I make a suggestion that you talk to the contractor
Yes.
and come back to us before we agree?
I can do that.
Does that give him time to order in time if we bring?
Yeah, he knew it was on the agenda for tonight, and they have not ordered any lights yet for us for this contract, so we can talk to them and see what our options are before he does that. I mean, he's pushed for time because it's so late coming to council this year, but that's what he hasn't ordered any yet.
Okay.
So we're really changing the scope of what we've requested before, and I love the idea of maybe reducing the number of lights they were anticipating putting there before, because we're now asking them to put more permanent lights in some of these locations, but still do the other flags and other holiday trees, etc. Could we go back to the same vendor and ask them to modify this?
We could, but you're not asking for less lights, are you? You're
Correct.
asking
No.
for them to be just year-round on Miracle Strip Parkway?
Yes, on certain, wherever they determine that we can have annual lights, that sounds,
Sure.
I agree, I think it sounds like a brilliant idea, but would we have to do a whole new bid package to do this, or could we
They
work
were the
with this
only
vendor?
ones.
They were the only ones that submitted.
Okay, so we can just go back to it. Great.
Yeah, if that gives us time to order.
Mr. Walker?
Seasonal, my mind went to Christmas tree only. give me a picture of when the lights go up, when the lights come down, because right now this is up and down. If we approved it like this, when would the lights go up? Is there 1 or 2 or 3 or a number of times through the year, 4th of July, Christmas, other times, or is it?
For lights, they just go up one time, and it's for Christmas. So they go up in, they start working on them in October, and then they get turned on the day after Thanksgiving, and they come down after New Year's. That's the lights at the Gulfview, down Miracle Strip Parkway, the Landing and Sound Park, and also some here at City Hall. And then in the summer, they do banners on Eglin Parkway. Oh, we also have the wreaths on Eglin Parkway that also come down after Christmas.
Right, so one event.
For the lights, yes.
The big event, okay. And previously, we've done that internally with?
Years
staff?
ago, we did. We didn't have all the lights. We did the Christmas tree.
Okay.
Internally, but for the past, probably, this is our second contract that they've been doing the Christmas tree for us also downtown.
I got you. And they've been under contract previously to do
They
the
have.
same? And just, we're now at $60,000 per annual. What was the conclusion of the last contract? Remember how much it was?
Yeah, last year was, the last contract was 55, I believe. Yeah, they have not gone up much at all. That was one of the things we noticed with them.
Other comments from council? Maybe get a motion.
Can we do just a motion to postpone to the September 10th meeting?
Juliana said we can't just change the scope. I mean, we can, but we have to go out to bid even if there's just one. She said we can't, we have to go back out to bid. It either goes like this or we have to go back out. Just because there was one person doesn't mean that we can just change it per person.
Even if the motion is requesting staff to negotiate with one entity?
Yeah.
We can, you know, as far as the lights too in downtown with the Landing and Gulfview and City Hall and everything, if we're talking about the downtown palm trees, you know, we could even award, if that's what council wants to do, is award the RFP, and we can get it priced as an add-on to, if it's different types of lights that we leave up year round, we can get that as an add-on price and bring back if that's what you like. And you may say, hey, the lights we wrap are good anyway.
Right. I mean, he's definitely the expert. I mean, so we definitely want to get his opinion, his advice. And like Councilman Walker was saying earlier, I know saltwater, but watercolor does them. So there's some out there that work and do. So I'd be open to just postpone to the next meeting and go back to him and see what we can't see what 1 year is. You know, we got that option on the table. We got the option of leaving some up year round. I just don't. I'd be scared to commit to a 5 year, $60,000, $300,000 contract if it's only going to be 75 to do it 1 year and then he's got lights next year. Just, I don't think that'll push us back too far to go to September 10th and wait and see what they say, what their other options are.
Mr. Allegretto.
I agree with Mr. Jeter. One way or the other, they're not going to cancel Christmas. I mean, whether we have a big tree and all the lights or not, whether we have to go to the Home Depot and buy a tree and put up some lights, I mean, one way or the other, Christmas is still going to go on. So I think that this is, again, something that can beautify our city long-term, especially with the investment of $60,000 a year. And I do understand the labor and manpower that's involved in doing all of those places that Ms. Corcoran mentioned, putting up all those lights, taking down those wreaths. Like, you have to have people. It's not just one guy going out there and doing all that stuff. So it is a lot of work, but at the same time, this is a good opportunity to really kind of change something that may be a small piece of the budget, but could have a really big impact on how our city looks. So I'm in support of that. I don't think you made a motion, but.
Can I just say one thing? Sorry, I just keep interjecting. Just, she said it's okay to negotiate less for less work with a agreed price, or you can just vote to waive the purchasing policy as well. That would kind of get around the issue.
So we could go back and negotiate with just them.
We would need a motion to waive the purchasing policy on this particular item.
I'm sorry?
Need a motion to waive the purchasing policy for this particular item.
This particular item.
And
then we can move forward.
But with that, you would still come back to us for the approval? Okay.
We can bring that back on the 10th. We can come back on the 10th.
So make a motion to postpone until September 10th. also waiving the purchase policy to renegotiate for year-round lights in allowable areas.
All right.
Second.
Second.
Yeah.
All right. Been moved by Councilman Jeter, second by Councilman Allegretto to waive our purchasing policy, and say it all again, please.
To waive our purchasing policy for RFP number 24-012.
Right.
To allow staff to renegotiate for year-round lights.
Year-round lights.
And permitted areas.
Got it. And you're good with that, Mr. Allegretto?
Absolutely.
Very good. Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Very good. Further comments, Council?
Mr. Mayor, because I got confused there. So I was listening, I'm like, what? So I thought initially you were talking about just a one-year contract. You're talking about to get a quote for certain year-round lights, not the Christmas lights, not the wreaths up Eglin Parkway kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, the entity can still do that. We're not going to leave the wreaths up year-round. So that entity's, their price may be $20,000 next year just to put up wreaths and do this and do that. But we may
be leaving in place the other lights that they would normally be taken down.
Correct.
And the policy that's being waived is the one that would require that it go back out for bids, is that correct? Okay. Thank you.
It's allowing Jeff to spend whatever amount of money he wants.
Love it. Think it's a great idea. I know these are the good things that can come from this. But while y'all are negotiating and talking with them, I know you mentioned one thing could be maintenance and the cost of maintenance. But I really like those big oak trees and really like the landing as y'all do too. And while y'all are in those conversations, if it is squirrels and those kind of things that you really do believe that it would be costly and it's not even worth discussing with them, I'll trust you and Tiffany, obviously. But if there is an issue about a little bit more of a maintenance and the time and effort that goes with that, it'd be interesting to see what it would be to light up the big oak tree, that we put the Christmas lights on around the landing. I know a lot of lighting has been in the top of the conversation the past 6 months, and if this could be a creative way to enhance that lighting on the beautiful part they're getting ready to have, as well as the palm trees on 98. I will trust y'all's judgment when we end up doing with the vendor, but while we're talking about this subject, we probably won't talk much about it anymore after tonight until y'all bring it back. I'd love to see the oak tree lit up, but we'll trust what y'all do.
Any further comments from council? Anyone from the public wish to speak? Council, please vote. Those passed unanimously. Thank you, council. And now, I'm going to bring us to public comment. This is for items that are not on the agenda, and if you'd limit your comments to 5 minutes or less, please. Anyone who wishes to speak, come forward and address yourself, give us your name and address.
Hi, y'all. I'm Lori Arrington. My husband, Mike Arrington's here with me. We live at 216 Fleva Avenue in Fort Walton Beach. We've been residents. This month makes 30 years that we bought that house as our first house together. He was born here and the Air Force sent us back to Special Operations. So we've lived here ever since they sent us back here. I know this is off topic and I know you guys have had a long time, so tonight already. 5 years ago or so, thereabouts, we started having problems with the Airbnbs. We have 2 boarding houses, and those have been there for a number of years. By boarding houses, I mean that they rent out singular rooms in them, and they go anywhere from $25 to $85 a night. So with those 2 houses came SWAT. We've had SWAT in our neighborhood. We've had EMS, we've had people who died of overdoses, which is pretty disturbing in a neighborhood, disturbing period in our nation. But we bit our tongues with the first 2 because we firmly believe in private property rights, individual rights. And so, we just said, okay, this is just the way it's going to be. And we followed the legislation in the Florida legislature. However, if you fast forward to today, we have 7 of them on our block. Fleva to Sotier, around Hudson, back to Fleva, 7. There's roughly 30-something houses on in that little block of area. Most of those now are whole house rentals. These properties sometimes have 12 plus people. More than that, sometimes cars parked, trash left. They openly advertise on the sites that they're listed on that they sleep 10, which is well over the 6 that single-family houses have. They're here on vacation, I get it, we go on vacation too, but they party with music all day and all night, and loud music that we can hear 3 or 4 houses over. At one point we had 2 of them having Battle of the Bands with their pools, and that's okay, I mean, I get it, but however, it sometimes goes late into the night, and I'm not talking about on Friday nights or Saturday nights. I mean, we were party people too. I'm from Louisiana, so I get it. However, we're talking Sunday nights, we're talking Monday nights, Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, Thursday nights. We work shifts, so we have to sleep. Some of us have to sleep during the day because we work the night shift. Some of us work day shift, so we have to sleep at night. We've called everyone, we've called the police, that was who the city recommended we do. They're tired of hearing from us. No, they're not. They've actually been awesome. We've called code enforcement. Some of these properties are homesteaded without people living in them, so they're not paying taxes full. We know that they're required to register. I would say, too, that the music is not what you want your 5-year-old and 6-year-old listening to. It has foul language and profane, that from my husband. So we know that they're required to register, and so I did a little public record search. 201 in Okaloosa County have bothered to register, 24 homes in Fort Walton Beach, and 9 of those have owner properties. Those are the properties, 24. 9 of those are delinquent in those licenses. 6 of 10 have owners that have city residents addresses. The rest are Georgia, Maryland, New York, Utah, Virginia, South Florida, and everywhere else in between. These are not voters or residents of Fort Walton Beach. These people are not following rules of polite coexistence that you would expect in a neighborhood. I want you to know that I'm not a Karen. I'm very tolerant. I'm not here saying, you know, but this is a problem. We've lived here 30 years. We have never wanted to move from our house. Our children were raised there. But this summer has become off the chain with the 7. Other communities have limited days per year, limited short day rentals, enforce the license and the registration, and that's with the requirements for the state legislature. However, we already have zoning laws that I believe gives you guys some cover for this. In Chapter 2, Fort Walton Beach defines single-family residence as limited to 6 occupants. And I know we make exception for people who have congruent families that are larger than that. And that's okay, but we're talking about families. According to that same chapter in our zoning, bed and breakfasts are prohibited in our R1 neighborhood. You can't have bed and breakfast. Communal housing is not allowed without a permit, without permission from y'all. That same chapter provides for requested use rate waivers that can be considered if, quote, use is substantially similar where characteristics of use are equivalent to permitted uses. Okay, so y'all can make exceptions for permitted uses, but bed and breakfast, which these are, I mean, they're making their own breakfast, but they essentially operate as bed and breakfast. Maybe fraternity bed and breakfast, but it says that you can consider hours of operation, noise, light, pollution, and customary activities in those exceptions. So if you can consider them for exceptions, maybe you could consider them for the other. I'm not a lawyer, but you guys have plenty of those. So I'm not trying to tell you what to do. Further, it says Fort Walton Beach zoning is provided for the purposes of health, safety, and welfare, adequate infrastructure assurance, undue concentration of people, and to conserve property values for city residents. We want to ask that you please consider returning the neighborhoods of our community to the citizens that live here and vote for you. Because this is a problem. Our neighborhood has been overtaken. And like I said, we support private property, we really do. But there are limits to that. And when it starts infringing on, these people aren't our neighbors. They don't act like neighbors. They don't want to be neighbors. They want to be on the island or in a commercial, mixed use area. So I'm asking y'all, I'm so thankful that y'all have done so much planning and changing ordinances and really concentrating on making Fort Walton Beach the beautiful place that, it can be. And so I ask y'all to consider to please bring this, I know it's a touchy subject with a lot of people, but I'm asking y'all to please bring this back to your forefront when you're thinking about planning and ordinances and something in improving our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a question from Ms. Kopp. I understand your pain. Truly do. I talked to our legislators about, and correct me if I'm wrong, they passed state law changing R1. I live in R1, not far from you. That they can have Airbnbs, they can rent, they can do that. We have HUD housings, they can have group homes, whatever. But there's limits. And I believe the state had stated that if they rent a place, no more than 2 people per bedroom. I think this is this last year that the state senate, the state.
And now I'm going to have to check, but I believe that was then vetoed by the governor. I thought.
Okay, well check because I haven't checked that it has been vetoed.
But regardless of that, we can, with or without the state, put those rules into place.
Okay, that was my next part.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll check on that. Yeah. Also, the state legislator says, we understand, we hear your pain. Keep calling the city police. May I suggest each time you call, get a case number and who you talk to. That person may not want to give you her name, but at least get a case number. Keep a record of it. I have volumes of that. And the police have worked with me on this. They have truly worked with,
They have. I don't want you to think that they have not. They have been, I love our police department. Yeah. In fact, the only other time that I've stood up here and griped to y'all was about keeping our police department instead of consolidating it. So they have been wonderful.
They've been great, But the legislators say that's the only, your recourse. We understand your pain. They live in this area here also, and they're being inundated with their R1.
But they need, if I wanted to live next to Spinnaker's, I would have moved next to Spinnaker's.
Hey, I feel the same way. If I wanted to live next to the sports complex, I would have done that too, so I understand. So I understand perfectly what you're saying, but keep calling public safety, keep doing it, and keep records, and call your state legislators.
We have, but honestly, I had family in law enforcement. I worked for some of the local law enforcement agencies here. They have a lot more, they have to say.
I understand, but she's checking on something here.
I'm just saying that if you guys can find a civil answer, please.
Would it make more sense maybe to call code enforcement at that point in time?
We do, we have.
Okay, so I don't know, Chris, if we've had open code cases on these addresses or not, or?
I'll look into them. I know we've had a lot in that neighborhood around Hudson there with one that on multiple properties. Some uses over there, so.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Come forward.
I'm Earl Hat. I'm born and raised here.
Come to the mic. Come to the mic, please.
This has been like a 5-year battle with us. I talked to code enforcement, talked to the city, and they point me to Tallahassee. Talked to Tallahassee, and they point me back over here. All right, so nobody wants to address the elephant in the room. But it's really getting to the point that everybody, our neighborhood, the people that own and live here, are putting houses up for sale constantly and talking about leaving because it's getting out of control. Now, I've been walking my dogs and had cars come flying by me, almost hit me, and it's an Airbnb. They're racing to it. So I'm angry, and I'm trying to contain this, but this is way out of hand. Thank you.
So to answer your question on that House bill, it was vetoed by the governor on June 27th. of this year. And that was Senate Bill 280 on vacation rentals. But regardless of that, the city council can do occupancy regulations if they want to. I would say even without the occupancy though, code enforcement can deal with the issue not just through the uses, because the statute says that we can't prohibit short-term rentals in residential areas, nor can we regulate the duration or the frequency of them, but we can address the impacts of noise, trash, and most of the other things that are being complained about through our other regular ordinances that apply throughout the city anyway. So Jeff and I will talk with code enforcement about some options and review the issues and the facts with that property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
But I think we can start tomorrow with one thing they mentioned, just with the livery ordinance. We had 18 people who were not complying with our livery ordinance because they hadn't even completed the application to operate in the city. I think we heard that the same may be true for some of these rentals. Let's start with the low-hanging fruit. If they haven't submitted all their applications, let's utilize our residents who are willing to, or seem willing to interact and help. Let's find out who's operating without a license. Maybe 30 or 45 days in the accompanying meeting, we can get direction from staff on how, because this isn't just this neighborhood we're dealing with this with, it's other neighborhoods also. Maybe 30 or 45 days we can have, with better time to research, some direction from our legal counsel and staff on maybe there's some enhanced ordinance we can put in place. But once again, ordinances don't do anything without our support for code enforcement to go after these folks that aren't following either our current ordinances or ones that we may put in place. So I would ask that, I know this isn't time for motion, but maybe we can bring this back up at a later hearing.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hopper.
I thought you were going to reference the law enforcement approach to those unlicensed, is that the ones you were talking about, the unlicensed pontoon boat rentals and stuff? Is that, because I remember a couple of meetings ago, there were a lot of residents complaining, and many of us are aware of the pontoon rentals that are operating out of the backyard. And Chief Beige stepped up and said, well, we can begin an enforcement effort, so thinking about the number of people, and I've read about it, it's in my business, I deal with investors who are looking for Airbnbs, and can I do one there, and that kind of stuff, so it comes up frequently, but if we have 2 per bedroom, I think that was the number you referenced. Whatever the number is, even if we tried to establish one, it kind of comes back to Mr. Pizzetti's department or Chief Beige's department going in there knocking at night to see who's sleeping over. It's pretty hard to enforce that. It'll go on the books.
You can see the cars. You can see the cars.
And cars are different than people. And so I know. It's a cat and mouse approach to that. But if it is the noise complaints, and I think it's council's ability or interest in, saying go write a ticket to either the person, is there any news on who gets the ticket, i.e. the person that's there, or is it the landlord?
Through code enforcement? Well,
or through law enforcement.
If it's through code enforcement, then you have to deal with Chapter 162, which will require the notice to go to the property owner. The property owner can then take it up with the tenants, obviously, but and we can give courtesy notices to the actual tenants or violators in addition to the property owner. It's just that the property owner has to have that due process. If it's through law enforcement, I think they have some different rules. They can go directly to the violator if it's their, if it's a state criminal law.
Right. And then through that, maybe I've got law enforcement's got 18 complaints at your neighbor. 18 complaints on it, and that's where, is there something that we can reach out to the homeowner, the landlord that's in Pennsylvania, for example, and start assessing a code violation enforcement on them? I don't know.
When you enforce it against the property owner, so if you have a short-term rental, it's not going to be homesteaded. So those protections under the state law for code enforcement where we can't go the full extreme against the property, for example, a foreclosure of a lien. We can't do that on homesteaded properties, but we could on a short-term rental if they continued to violate our ordinances and not come into compliance, and we followed the statutory procedures right. So, you know, that's an option, and it'll ultimately be decisions for the city council how far to take it. But at this point, we have ordinances on the books that can be enforced now, so it can be addressed.
And those are primarily noise and parking, is that correct? So those are the two big, or
Well,
those
we
are?
have livery ordinances also, but on the books now, if those are, and I don't know the facts, so it's hard to tell you all the ordinances at play without knowing everything, but certainly from what was said tonight, noise and parking and trash and nuisances, all kinds of things like that.
And that's a law enforcement. A noise violation is a law enforcement.
It can be, yeah, law enforcement could be part of it, and our codes are part of it. So also code enforcement.
Thank you. Mr. Allegretto?
So I would kind of agree with what a lot of people said up here. It is a real challenge, and we've all heard it even in the last 2 years from various neighborhoods throughout the city. They're just like any business. There are people that run these correctly, that are mindful of the surrounding neighborhood, that do file all the correct paperwork, that do the right thing. Just like the livery business, there's people that run it out of their backyard and you don't know what's going on or who's doing what or any number of things. Unlike any other business, this is so heavily regulated by the state that it's really tough for us to do major enforcement. However, one thing I heard Ms. Kopp say earlier that I had not known before was there are additional things we could do. And whatever those things are, I think we should really do them. Because I'm kind of in the situation where I hear what these folks are coming in here and saying. I hear this probably once a month in these meetings from people, and I feel like there's nothing I can do because the state said they can just do whatever they want pretty much. I don't think that can't be the intention of the state.
No, and
so
the state, yeah.
if we can ramp up enforcement, if we can change things with zoning, if we can do whatever. I mean, I think, I hate to say this one long word, but I think this is a workshop. Like, I really do. I think we should get together and have a specific workshop just on this and how we regulate this. And that's not to single out a particular business, but it is meant to keep our neighborhoods and our communities safe where people want to live there. And I don't blame anybody for feeling angry and upset that music is playing too late at night. I don't blame anyone for being angry and upset. People are driving too fast up and down the road because they don't care about this community because they're here from Wisconsin and they're getting hammered on the way back from spinning, right? So I think it's really important that we take any kind of action that we can. And I know that it's not a massive and significant action, but it can be enough action in the right ways with code enforcement, with heavier police enforcement, and with looking at and changing any zoning or anything that we can do as a council to say this is actually very important because we want our residents to stay in this city and feel happy and feel safe living in the city, and there shouldn't be a state regulation that changes that. So I would really, I'm again not going to make a motion or anything like that, but I would really like to see a future workshop on that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Smith.
Two things real quick. Chris, do we have a registration process? I didn't think so. So the county does, but we do not as the city.
You could, but you could implement one.
Right.
Yes, that's correct. We don't have it here in the state DVPR. That's where that process has come in, and we were speaking with DVPR a few months ago on it, and it's a weird way, process is a nice way to put it, is that we received some information from them that how it's defined as a short-term rental or Airbnb even changes how the state looks at them. That we were told directly, oh, if it's Airbnb, basically we don't touch those. I said, well, that's a short-term rental or vacation rental. Well, we know, but we don't touch those. So that's where, so that's just information we've heard, we've been told. We don't have something we could put in place. If there's any parking noise, like Mr. Walker said, those are things that we can absolutely cite and enforce. aside from that, it's you can't do the frequency or duration, but you can outline occupancy levels, things like that.
I got one more question for Chris.
Go ahead.
I feel like we keep going back to this theme of enforcement. We've had a workshop on code enforcement and stuff like that. And I know we're making an emphasis on it. I guess my question to you is it seems like every time we come here, there's another issue that pops up. So I guess my question to you is we have 3 guys. Is 3 guys enough to be able to handle what we have going on in the city?
In my opinion, probably not. Okay. We're running 20, 30 inspections at least a day, every day, trying to keep up. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Berry.
Chief Beige,
Yes.
do we still have code enforcement person with the police department?
Yes, we do. And we can issue, and we talked about this in the past, the civil citations can be issued by us or the code officers. So either one of the 2 of us can do that. I'll get with the individuals afterwards because I'd really like to find out which homes they claim are homestead exempt. Because that's one of the things that we should really look to go after. Because if somebody is fraudulently using a homestead, that's a step from the city and county tax guarantee. So that's one thing I'd like to look at first to see which ones have proper homesteads and which ones are probably not properly homesteaded. And then we can continue to look at the secondary issues, the parking, the speeding of the vehicles, or other issues that we can either write civil citations to.
Thank you. I have another.
Go ahead.
Okay. You mentioned there's ways that we can develop our own ordinances.
Yeah.
Please help guide me in that, guide council in that direction.
Well, you were mentioning the Senate bill that had the occupancy. So that is one way. That's what I was actually responding to. You could put occupancy limits in place if you wanted to. You can have a registration process that has certain requirements. For example, you can require them to have a sign outside that has their occupancy limit and establishes or sets forth the parking that they're required to have, and a 24-hour phone number so that when there's a complaint, someone has to immediately address it. There's various things we could talk about. We could workshop it to, Councilmember Allegretto's point. So there's probably a lot of options. What we can't do is prohibit them in residential areas or regulate the duration or frequency of the rental. But other than that, it's pretty much open.
Thank you.
I hate to keep going down this road. This is actually going to be my council minute, but since we're kind of talking about it, it goes back to the same thing as I love registering. Technically, if you do it now, you have to register with the county because that's where you remit your taxes and all that kind of stuff. So we can do that locally, but it still goes back to enforcement. So our code enforcement officer that we just hired under the police department, for whatever reason, is no longer with us, but he was doing great, correct? And he was being able to tackle things like this that we don't have, neither department has time for. So I would love, like Councilman Smith said, we need 2 of those guys we've had this talk 20 times, that got lights on their car, that show up, that look like officers, maybe not our code enforcement guys in a collared shirt that look like so let's go down that road like we had underneath the police department of 2 guys that can really go out and enforce stuff. And one of my things on enforcement too is not so much just the Airbnbs and the short terms or however that gets broken down. I love a workshop because we always get a lot of good things done in a workshop, but even enforcing things like golf carts. And we've had this talk. How many golf carts are registered? Wasn't it I think it was 1 or 2, wasn't it? It might have been yours. But remember we did it last time, it was
25 or 30.
Is it 25 or 30? Okay. Well, there's 500 over there, and it's just like we always say, it's where we hold the bar. There's people that do it right. There's people that have LSVs that have a titled golf cart with seat belts and can drive it wherever they want. They don't have to register it. There's other people that just bought one from that same place that left their Christmas lights up here around in Kentucky, and it only goes 5 miles an hour down the street. They're not registered. They're riding around on roads, and their calls. Someone's going to get hurt on Hollywood with some of these golf carts that people are driving on. So that was kind of my council minute. I just want to go back to that code enforcement officer, and I think we need to ramp that up and not be dependent on 1. Maybe we have 2 there, and it's underneath the police department, and they can really enforce stuff, not mail letters.
Thank you, sir.
You said wait till later. I went mid-meeting.
Got it.
Amen.
All right, council, thank you very much. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, and so we are going to take appropriate actions.
Thank y'all for hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought we were still doing,
Is this applicable towards boats?
Address the mic, please.
I'm sorry. Is this applicable towards boats? Because I have two large pontoon boats that are consistently being parked in front of my apartments. I don't know who they belong to, but they're obviously for commercial use. So is this somehow applicable to boating?
We have taken some action on the livery, on private people running a livery service.
Is that what is considered?
I would,
Boating is considered?
Yeah, if you're
Okay.
commercially using a pontoon boat, it's
They're
it's
being
considered a-
rented for compensation.
Yeah, it's considered a livery, which would
Okay.
fall under the livery ordinance.
Okay, so that does apply to these boats. So,
if that's what they're being used for.
Yeah.
well, they're pretty large, they don't look like private. So is this something I need to call code enforcement about when I see them?
They'd have to catch them in the act of somebody renting them, yes, but if they're parked in front of somewhere where they're not supposed to, they may be violating a parking ordinance wherever, so.
I think you should just do what you've done. You've told us code enforcement will look into it now and check out what violations there are, because they could be, depending on what's happening, a storage violation, a parking violation, or they could or could not be rented commercially. So staff will investigate it based on your complaint.
Which is across the street from my property.
So staff, you know where to go check? Perfect, thanks. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else have public comments for this evening on items not on the agenda? Yes, ma'am.
Nancy Reynolds, 25 Driftwood Avenue. I missed Friday nights this summer. I really did. We used to have a Friday night concert every Friday night through the summer, and my dentist was even in a band. And there's a lot of local talent. The high schools have bands, they have musicians. They have singing. Stagecrafters is great. We just have a lot of local people around here that every Friday night we could go down to the landing and see our neighbors and have fun. And it just hasn't happened. And so my suggestion is whatever the plan was this year probably was expensive. And the other way is going to be a lot easier. And maybe make a committee and have local people and anybody else that's really interested in planning next summer start in May and end Labor Day. And that would be something fun to do for the residents of this town. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
I just speak to that.
Yeah.
Reynolds, Jeff, we had concerts there were fewer.
No, there's actually more.
No.
I was gonna say, I went to a bunch of
15.
Friday night concerts.
Well, I didn't, and I
I
did
didn't
go
see
to
you
lunch.
there.
There was 4th of July, and I think that through September, but then there's football games too. So my deal is you start in May, you end Labor Day. And we used to do this, and it was fun. And there's a lot of local talent that we could use, and that's what I'm just saying. I missed all summer, Friday night, going down to the landing and seeing people. It just wasn't in existence.
It was.
Well,
It was.
really?
Well, sure, it was there for sure. I liked I brought it up, it'd be a good time to bring, I liked the movies at the landing. That was nighttime viewing. Seems like there was a public-private partnership there.
Downtown. Yeah, we
Churches
used to do-
participating.
We used to do the concerts in the spring and then movies over the summer, and then we came back and we just recently started doing concerts all in the fall because we had such a huge amount of people that wanted to continue to do it. I think we got a Taylor Swift tribute band this fall. But I mentioned this rentals too, that we've got the landings under construction. When the landing opens up, we'll do things like Friday nights, summers at the landing. I mean, there'll be a lot more activities to be able to do. Half the park is under construction. So when that opens up and the stage opens up, there'll be a lot of opportunities to do.
Thank you, sir.
Then make a committee.
We don't need one. We've got a professional that does it. He brings in top-notch bands.
That costs money. And I'm just saying that maybe you could have some more input, because I remember every Friday night going down there, and I haven't been in weeks, and I'd really like to do that next summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor and council members, the City of Fort Walton Beach Code Enforcement Special Magistrate recently has called me a liar, belittled me, and demeaned me in public forum regarding a carport that I had installed nearly 10 years ago. City officials claim I did not file for a permit 10 years ago. Then, at that time, I asked for a permit and was told that none was required by Burt Rose. Perhaps you asked, did I get that in writing? The answer is no. 10 years ago, I never dreamed a city official would lie, much less under oath. He says that the conversation regarding the permitting had never happened. However, I can recall exactly what was said because it was involved me and my property. There is no way he can recall a brief conversation that took place more than 10 years ago. At that time, I was on the Code Enforcement Board and I wanted to do things right. Mr. Rhodes told me in no uncertain terms no permit was required. But if it were, I needed to have the canopy resist 140 mile/hour wind speed, and the building could not block any view of the street, i.e. 6 feet or taller. I paid extra for those specifications for the installation. It was completed by the professionals from Carolina Carports. Earlier this year, a code violation, I was cited for a code violation for these same carports 9 years after they were installed, claiming that I never filed a permit. Recently, the City Council voted to use a special magistrate, a single attorney, who became very disrespectful of me before I even said one word, and the code, instead of using the Code Enforcement Board that is made up of 7 residents. Because of the Director of Planning and Zoning told the council this was more efficient. Forget about the citizens, just what the city officials wanted for their convenience, screw the residents, and their desire to be involved in the city administration. The assigned magistrate would not listen to me and would not let me talk. It would not let me ask questions. I was told I was being insubordinate. The magistrate's behavior was as if she resented being called up for the 2 cases. She was angry before I had a chance to say a thing. The city had to pay for a second magistrate for my hearings because a tenant of mine is an attorney with a law firm holding the contract with the city. A conflict of interest was stated. I was before a figure of authority and I said very little at my first hearing. I tried to speak, but she would not listen to me, nor would she let me finish a single sentence without interrupting me. She said I should have known better because I was on the Code Enforcement Board, which seemed to further her anger. I mentioned the statute of limitations because but the city attorney, Jeff, said that that only applied when my case was on appeal. My comments were dismissed. Waterhouse, the attorney, banged the gavel and I was done. She passed the sentence on the carport that I had to come down, and I was stunned. I came home and looked up the statutes. I saw nothing that mentioned the application of the statute or applied only when appeals are made. I sent a copy of the statute to Ed Moore, but heard nothing back. On Wednesday this past week, I had to go before the same magistrate and again regarding the same issue. She wanted to know if I had removed the carports. I told her no because of the statute of limitations. I did talk over her because of my previous experience when she would not let me speak, and I was determined to speak. She banged her gavel a multitude of times and told me to be quiet, that I was not to speak any further, and I continued to make my point, or at least try. I had never been treated so disrespectfully. Because there was no requirement for a permit 10 years ago, the city wants to charge me for a permit, told me I had to either remove the 2 carports or pay the city for a variance costing $1,000 per carport, produce a survey which costs $600, pay the administrative fee, and pay for a newspaper ad for 2 weeks. And now the magistrate, who has been angered for having come to the hearing, has charged me with a fine of $250 a day dating back to July 17th. As of today, the current fines total $10,000. I sent the information to the statute of limitations to the city attorney, but I have heard nothing from them. Tonight I read this letter of complaint to the city council and ask you to help rescind this directive of this opinionated and biased attorney. I have a copy of the statute, and the statute reads, the statute of limitations is a law that sets time limit for when legal proceedings can be started after an event has occurred. The time limit varies by jurisdiction and the type of claim and can start from the date of injury, discovery, or when it should have been discovered. Statutes of limitations exist for criminal and civil cases. Federal law says that the general 5-year statute of limitations applies in every case unless there is a specific code that extends the statute of limitations for that particular offense. Additionally, it states a statute of limitations known in civil law systems as a prescriptive period is a law passed by a legislative body to set maximum time after an event within which legal proceedings may be initiated. I would like to ask the council respectfully to rescind this order and drop this matter because it is causing me an immense amount of stress when it was cited 9 years, 5 years past the statute of limitations. Thank you for your attention.
Mr. Attorney, you probably want to stay there. I'm thinking
Yes, sir.
there might be some questions for you. I'm not sure.
Mr. Walker, do you have questions?
It's more for us, I believe. I know you'd sent an email. I read it. I believe it's a lot of what you just read right there. So it does concern me that someone over a carport is being fined $250 a day. I can imagine the stress that's causing on you. And I want to see, you mentioned rescinding the order. I don't know. I'll ask Ms. Cobb, magistrate passes an order, fines are in violation, starts assessing a $250 a day fine. What options do we have up here to either stop it, rescind it, review it? I mean, so I'm with you in saying if it was 9 years ago when you had it installed, I'm assuming you have some form of a record.
Yes, sir.
Of when it was installed.
I've submitted
So,
that to the
and
city.
I also believe that the attorneys, the magistrate's very qualified in looking at legal
Very
things.
biased.
And may see things differently than us legally. But for $250, I want to make sure that we've given you every opportunity. Everybody has reviewed it. There is no statute of limitation. If there is or if there isn't, really is what I'm looking for, because I know at $250 a day is being assessed to her to go find an attorney who would represent you, to bring the matters, another several $1,000s to hire someone to begin with, even to begin the conversation. So we as your representatives, I'd like to find out if there's a way that we can maybe put things on pause, stop it, because to be honest, if it goes another 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, and we've had citizens come up here and ask for, I don't know, forgiveness, for lack of a better word, it's probably not the right legal term, but they come up here and ask for forgiveness of their fines and penalties, and we as a group have generally gone that way, although each case is individual. So I'd like to make sure that we do what we can to pause it and double check, triple check.
So you actually don't have authority over the special magistrate in that way. Appeals under the state law are to circuit court, not to the city council. So there's that. But you do have the ability to review a lien reduction request. So if the property owner applies to the city council to have, and you know this because you've seen them, to have the lien reduced or removed, she can do that, and then the council can review it that way. But you don't have the authority to change the special magistrate's order without going through that process.
So then I want to know about that lien, with that order in place with the $250 a day. When is a lien placed with that order?
So I don't know the specifics of this case,
Right,
so I'm
but
going to speak generally. But generally, the process is anyone will be given a notice of violation when they're alleged to be in violation of a code. Then they are set for a hearing. At the first hearing, if the special magistrate finds them in violation, they are given another time period to come into compliance, and that can range. It could be 30 days or more or less, but
Sure.
So at that point, she'll have that time period to come into compliance. If it's not in compliance within that time period, then a second hearing is set. To this point, there are no fines other than the administrative fee that the city charges for the hearing process. But there's no daily fine, no $250 a day. At that second hearing, if she's not in compliance, if the respondent is not in compliance, there's a second hearing to make that determination. And at that point, the magistrate will impose a daily fine if she deems it appropriate. So it's at the second hearing that fines would start to accrue from the date that compliance was supposed to be achieved but wasn't.
Mm-hmm. And so that lien that a citizen gets to come before us for removal or reduction of the lien that's placed there. Let's just figuratively, not even speaking about her per
Right.
se, but someone comes up, they violate the first, they don't fix it, the second time has happened, fines start accruing. At some point, a lien becomes placed on that property. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Do we know what that is?
So that order is going to impose the lien at that time. It's recorded and it becomes a lien. Then under the state law, you have to wait 90 days before the city could consider a foreclosure. This has nothing to do with you. City council is not considering a foreclosure right now, but under the state law, the lien is imposed when it's ordered and recorded, and then 90 days later, if it's not a homestead, could be foreclosed.
So then when the citizen comes before us with a lien reduction or removal request, let's say that for whatever reason at that time, we as a group majoritively say, we're going to reduce it to the, to pay for staff's time, and, it's $500, we're done. Now, is the violation cured? I mean, she's not removed. In this case, it would be you. Next time, it might be a man that doesn't move his fence or something. But, it's established, a lien is placed, comes here, we as a group say, you know what? We're going to reduce your fine. You got to pay $500, and that's that. Does the process begin again on violation?
But typically, you wouldn't reduce a lien if the person's not in compliance. I mean, that would be one of the basis for even requesting the lien reduction, assuming that compliance was achieved. So let's say it took 6 months for a property owner to come into compliance. Let's say there was a financial hardship and he or she came to you and said, I was given 30 days to comply, I couldn't do it, but I'm in compliance now and it's been 6 months. You could say, okay, well, we don't need to assess this high of a fine against you, this much of a lien, so we're going to reduce it to $500. And she's already, or he's already in compliance, so they're done. If they're not in compliance, we don't typically remove the lien.
And that's where I think I'm missing the opportunity to find out the what's it called, the statute of limitations. So 9 years ago, she's quoting 5 years federal. I'd hate for her to have to go get an attorney to tell me that, yeah, that's true or it's not true, or do we have copies of the order from the magistrate?
I do not. I have not seen this case, and the other attorney handles code enforcement, but I'm sure staff has a copy of the order, and they're here.
I'm sure the order will read as the magistrate saw it and read it. I'm really curious.
Oh, the statute of limitations issue?
No, I'm sorry. I'm sure that the magistrate's order is in order.
I'm sure.
But I want and I don't know if the order addresses her claim of a violation of the statute of limitations. So I'm asking you, as a citizen comes to me, what can you tell us about a statute of limitations on the code enforcement? 9 years specifically. 9 years ago, she had a carport installed.
Last I checked, there was no statute of limitations for code enforcement.
Okay.
But I would be happy to look at it again. This is the first time I'm hearing of this. I know there was an email today that came in around 3, but I was already in meetings with the city manager.
Yeah,
so I haven't looked at this, but I'd be happy to.
I would like to know about that. So I'd like to know.
I'm more addressing, even more than the fines, the legal ramification of even starting this whole process that Ed Moore generated, because he cited me for not filing for 2 permits when I was specifically told not to, that a permit was not required. Now I look at the law and it says it is a federal law that the general 5-year statute of limitation applies in every case.
Ms. Attorney, that's what I asked her to get me, and she'll provide it to the rest of us. I want background on the statute of limitations to see if indeed what you're saying there, that it gets you out of trouble.
Okay,
you can't prosecute it.
And then, and I guess that's what I'm asking.
If there was a statute of limitations, which I don't believe there is, but if there is, then there would not be able to be a lane in place. It would be invalid.
Well, but someone would have to assert that claim and defend it.
Well, I mean.
So that would negate any magistrate.
If there was a statute of limitation, and I'm not saying there is, because I don't believe there is, but if there was, and a case was brought after the statute of limitations, no, this isn't the appropriate forum.
Okay.
But like I said, this is a city council meeting. I would be happy to meet with you and go over the case with you and review it.
Okay, because it seems like it.
But our special magistrate is not biased towards anyone. I know that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Schmidt.
To kind of piggyback off what Ms. Kopp said, to kind of piggyback off of what Ms. Kopp just said, my understanding, watching that magistrate meeting, that staff was working with you to get up to code, and you mentioned you were going to go through requesting the variance.
I have 2 violations in front of the code enforcement.
Correct. The staff was trying to work with you
Well,
to get it.
wait. One was for my apartments on Parkview. The other carport, same issue, but at my personal home. I have filed for the variance, but because I don't do emails very well and I can't get on the city website, I thought I had paid the $900,000, $999 to the city. When I came to that hearing, I talked to Tim Gibson, and he said the money hadn't been paid. So I immediately went next door, paid the fine, brought him a receipt, because I don't conduct business through emails. And I can't get on the city website.
Right. But either way, I'm bringing up the variance process because that's a process within itself.
And I've done that for the other carport, but not because I'm still operating under this federal law that says there's a statute of limitations.
I'm just concerned after watching some of those magistrate meetings that our magistrate is not biased. There was a lot of due process that went through gathering those facts and gathering that information. I understand the upsetting point of you feel like 9 years ago that happened and now they're just getting, but staff up to present day has been working with you to try to get those things brought up to compliance.
Given an option of $2,000 variance.
There was multiple magistrate meetings leading up to this point where we're at today, but that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
We got to support staff.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to solve this here tonight. That's not.
Okay.
That's not what we're going to be able to do.
No, I just wanted y'all aware of what steps I'm taking and what research I have found. And when it said it was a federal law.
And this cop will work with you at an additional time of your choosing.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else have something that's not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we're going to go on with ordinances on first reading. 9.1, 2152, ordinance amending the Land Development Code 1.08.02, removing bus stop permissible use. And I'm sorry if Ms. Cobb, this is you?
Yes, please.
Mr. Mayor, I need Ms. Cobb right now. We're at item 9.1, and I've given the 2152 ordinance.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 2152, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, amending Section 1.08.02 of the Land Development Code to add a definition for bus stop and a definition for public transit stop, amending Chapter 2 zoning districts and uses of the Land Development Code to add public transit stop, and remove terminals, bus transit includes truck stop, as permitted uses in both commercial, general, CG, and commerce and technology park, CTP zoning districts, and providing for an effective date. This is first reading.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Frasetti.
Thank you, Chris Frasetti, Growth Management Director. So I'm going to briefly kind of intro this item and also the following two items. These three ordinances here are all related to each other. They're all kind of parts of the same discussion. So the first ordinance here regarding this Land Development Code amendment has to do with the actual table of allowable uses, and it goes into basically we've created we've specified that the use of terminal bus stops is no longer a permissible use in the city, period. And then we added in there for public bus stops like for Oakland County Transit, that type of amenity in the community. Those are not to be combined in there; they would be still allowed. Really, this comes back from the discussion from council a while back, looking at some of the concerns for safety and some of the use over there. The second ordinance here is just the next part of that, which has basically a phase-out period over a course of 1 year if the ordinance was to be approved to phase out that as a use. It would stop any new bus stops from coming into town, and then the existing would have 1 year to basically phase out with a process to do so. And then the following ordinance that will be discussed after potentially is to look at putting regulations for safety in there. We'll turn over to Ms. Kopp to kind of further explain. Myself and Mr. Burns worked on drafting up these ordinances, and really, from my staff side, we kind of help support them through this process.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Kopp.
Just if you have questions, I think Chris explained it. If you want me to go back through them, I'm happy to, but no need to waste time.
Right. Questions from council for Ms. Kopp?
So right now, you're just looking at the first ordinance, which changes the list of permitted and prohibited uses in the city.
I will say there are representatives as well from the property and bus company as well here this evening.
All right, thank you. Well, anyone in the audience wants to speak to this, please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and representatives of the City Council. My name is Paul Henges. I'm here with Flix North America. We're the parent company of Greyhound Lines. I'm also here with Damon, who is the local city agent for Greyhound, as well as Orlando, who is the district manager for the property that we have worked with to have the bus stop here. I'm here to answer any questions you may have about Greyhound and the service that we provide in the city of Fort Walton Beach. We have been proud to be providing service to the city of Fort Walton Beach for over 60 years, and we believe that our service is really important to this community. The majority of our riders in Florida are lower to middle income folks, and we provide a key service for folks who don't want to or cannot drive or cannot afford an airline ticket. Our tickets are about half the cost of an airline ticket if you're going to Atlanta or to other destinations in Florida. So we do provide key connectivity to the city. We are happy to address any concerns that the city may have. We would prefer to work with the city directly to address any safety or aesthetic concerns. We believe we can come to an effective solution with the city through those means. And I'd like to also invite Damon up here as well.
Certainly.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Myself, Dimar Patel. I'm operating this store since 2019. I moved from India in 2019 and came to Fort Walton Beach. This is my hometown. Everything what I made here. Everyone supported me, my family. My daughter, she is in Gainesville. She's in University of Florida. A bright kid. The business was doing really good right now because of the recession, and also the business not doing that good. My daughter, she just graduated from Firefighters High School with like 4.2 GPA. She just came here in 9th grade and she managed to do everything what she could do. She did everything. She went to University of Florida. She wants to do double major. She's doing it, and she graduated with associate degree. Now the thing is, if this, I cannot afford to lose this, because on one side, what I used to make, I'm not making that money. On the other side, I have expenses of my daughter who is doing excellent. I cannot ask her to work, and I cannot ask her more than what she's doing right now from my bride. So I would just request the council and the mayor to just keep an eye on these things, because it's my livelihood basically. I was doing great. Right now the business isn't doing that good. On the other hand, the expenses are skyrocket. So this is the thing that helps me at least to take out her hostel expenses, you know. I don't want her to work because she wants to do a double major. She's a bright kid. My son, he is in 8th grade, he likes Jackson. And that's what we are here for. And this town has given everything what we dreamed of when we came here. We had nothing. And I'm thankful to each and every person who supported us, and we are doing great right now. I just think that it will just work like that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Anyone else from the audience wish to speak? Council, to you.
I'd like to make a motion for staff's recommendation to amend the City of Fort Walton Beach Land Development Code, Section 2.03.02, table of permissible uses to eliminate terminals, bus, transit, includes truck stop as permissible uses in both commercial general and commerce and technology park zoning districts, CG and CTP.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
And moved by Councilman Jeter, second by Councilman Schmidt, to adopt ordinance 2152, amending the City of Fort Walton Beach Land Development Code, Section 2.03.02, table of permissible uses to eliminate terminals, bus, transit, includes truck stop as permissible uses in both commercial general, CG, and commerce and technology park zoning district, CTP. Any further comment?
Yeah, just like to say thank you for coming to speak tonight. I graduated from Fort Walton Beach High School myself. I'm sure your daughter sounds very intelligent and doing great. So all that's wonderful stuff, but this is just another step to everything else you've heard us here talk about tonight. Code enforcement and a level of stepping up and trying to improve our city. So it's not directly at any one person. It's just about improving our city. So thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
Yeah, I just would like to echo what he said. Nothing personal about any vendor or any organization, but there's just some concerns we have with that service. And there's a lot of great things that are happening on the bus, and there's some things that aren't so great that are happening on that bus that we want to try to look at and evaluate. But thank you for coming up here.
Thank you. Any further comments? Council, please vote. And it does pass 6-0. Thank you, Council. Item 9.2, 2153, ordinance amending Land Development Code, Section 6.06.00, prohibiting commercial bus stops after September 10th, 2025. Ms. Cobb.
Ordinance 2153, an ordinance of the City of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, amending Section 6.0600 of the Land Development Code to add a Section 6.6.01 titled Definitions, amending Section 6.0600 of the Land Development Code to add a Section 6.0602 titled Commercial Bus Stops Prohibited Within City Limits, prohibiting the use of land for commercial bus stops within the city limits of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, immediately, providing an amortization period for any existing commercial bus stops and extinguishing the grandfathering of commercial bus stops as a non-conforming use after September 10th, 2025, providing a method for affected parties to seek limited relief from the use prohibition established by this ordinance, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, providing for severability, and providing an immediate effective date. This is first reading. This ordinance amends the city's land development code to prohibit the operation of any intercity bus service, transit service stop businesses within the city after September 10th, 2025, and also amends the LDC to prohibit the use of land for intercity bus service, transit service stop businesses within the city after September 10th, 2025. Any affected party could continue to operate and use the property until that time in accordance with city regulations to amortize its investment in the property. The ordinance provides for an administrative appeal of the amortization period by an affected party as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Pacini.
Ms. Goff said it all, so.
We're doing that for each other now.
Yeah, that's it.
I got it. Comments from council? Anyone from the public wish to speak to this?
I've got a question. I just want to kind of double check here, make sure I didn't miss something. So this is for after September of 2025, no new ones, but existing ones. That previous ordinance that was just read eliminates that. Is that correct? And this is preventing new ones?
The opposite.
The opposite?
The other one was to prevent new ones, and this amortizes the existing out, so they would have to be gone within the time period set forth in the ordinance, which currently, as proposed, is 1 year.
Any further questions or comments from Ms. Goff or Mr. Pacini?
Is there,
And there is a process to extend the time period if they came in and had cause as set forth in the ordinance.
that's something I remember in the history of Fort Walton Beach, although I wasn't around and didn't participate in it. I understand there's a moratorium on tattoo parlors within the city district and whatnot. So those got grandfathered in. I mean, and it's my understanding and recollection that those were being addressed because of the problems that came with those, whatever they were, increased whatever it was the police was reporting or code violations. And so then we have one bus stop in town right up here at the convenience store. Is that correct? That's the one we're talking about. I mean, just, get down to the bottom of it. We're essentially between this one and that one, putting that one out of business, right? We won't have any more after that, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, got it. I just wanted to make sure I understood what was going on. Thank you.
Any further comments from council? And again, anyone from the audience wish to speak?
Thank you so much for hearing me. Basically, I just wanted to let you know one thing, that this is my hometown and I would like to make money for my livelihood, but at the same time, I would not like to have any hamper on the city of Fort Walton. So I'm dedicated to the image of Fort Walton, and whatever you ask me to do to take care of the business for that, I'm ready to do that for that. And thanks for giving me time for, like, my daughter, she will be graduating at least one major by next December. Thank you so much.
I've got a question for you, sir. So you own the convenience store, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then you have a lease agreement or contract agreement with the bus. They lease that space from
That's
you
correct.
on a monthly, annual. Do you have an annual contract with them? Do you have a monthly?
Yeah, we have an annual, every year we renew, and we have a lease period of like maybe till 2026 February. And I'm making like not more but $10,000 a year from what I book the tickets. If I book the tickets at my store, I get like 7 to 10% of the commission, which is not that big amount, but right now in inflation and the business not doing good, it's a great help for me, to be very honest.
And that's where I really wanted to kind of just move in a little bit on. So, and I'm not asking for specifics, and you don't have to give me anything, but the lease that they have with you to use your space there for them to deliver the bus and the booking and that kind of stuff, are you saying that in totality it's about $10,000 a year?
$10,000 a year, yeah.
Gotcha.
So maybe I'm doing $100,000 worth of tickets. They pay me like 8 to 10%, so it might be like $8,000 to $10,000 a year.
That's total with the lease of the space and your booking services.
I just get only the commission.
Gotcha.
nothing else.
Okay.
So, yeah, but that is good enough for at least one of my major expenses for my daughter.
Gotcha.
Looking at it right now. So initially it wasn't, because it was doing a great business. When I moved here, the COVID started. There was a lot of tourist people. And also I would like to see at the other side of the coin, this is the place where it's like a hub, a centralized hub for like 5 towns. And as we have for city of Fort Walton, if any tourist searches for that, it has an airport, it has a station, a Greyhound station, intercity station. I would like to see what, if it is not there, then how would people commute interstate, intercity and all, if these people are not getting any space. Everybody doesn't have that leverage of vehicles or maybe driving the vehicles too far. And that is the positive point as far as if I see the other side of the coin.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any other comments from council? Council, may we get a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2153, amending LDC section 6.06.00, prohibiting commercial bus stops after September 10th, 2025 on first reading.
Second.
Been moved by Councilman Jeter, second by Councilman Allegretto to adopt ordinance 2153 to amend chapter 606.00 to create chapter 6.06.01 and create chapter 6.06.02 to prohibit new commercial bus stops in the city limits after September 10th, 2024, and to extinguish any grandfathered commercial bus stops after September 10th, 2025. Any further comment?
I do. I want to just apologize to you. I understand that when you bought that property and developed that property and started providing for your family with that property, you had that income in mind. And
of course, sir, because if I'm paying a goodwill, a heavy goodwill, I take into account all the incomes and everything. I was being told like $15,000 a year, which was a part of my goodwill that I paid. And now if it is going to be a zero, and then after that time it was not that much expensive. At that time I was making a little bit of money out of the business because of the COVID and all. Now the inflation is skyrocketed. My daughter, she is in college.
Sure.
Everything, all of the things coming all together, you know. So that is a little bit, you know.
And that's part of the apology I want to make, but I also understand, where these ordinances are coming from, and it is from what appears to come in on those buses on a regular basis, ends up staying here. We as a group, from community input from lots of other citizens, have been, very concerned about those that come into the community and don't have anywhere to stay and end up being homeless or vagrants and others. And so that's definitely a part of what comes in, just like the tattoo parlors might have brought in some issues that the citizens didn't want, and the council at the time said, we're not going to support that anymore. I think that's what's going on today, is they don't want to support that anymore.
I understand, but I have not seen that much people coming, like homeless people coming in the bus and just staying down in the town, or any drivers who have just asked any people to just get off the bus because they are not, because of any of the reasons. But I don't know, looking at like 1 or 2 people coming in the town, like homeless people coming in the town, and for those reasons putting other people's life at stake who are not able to travel by their own, and like whoever are traveling from Fort Lauderdale, Miami and everything, like the Jamaican people, the prisoners from the prison, they are traveling from Greyhound when they just leave. Officers come here at our gas station. So it's a lot of concern if they stop the Greyhound. So
yeah, it's going to change. It's going to change the population of the people that arrive here, stay here, whether it's good intentions or not. And
I would take the city if it is for a betterment of the town and also for the people of the town. I don't have any problem. This was my concern, my livelihood things. That is the reason I just wanted to share with you guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Council. Oh, go ahead.
Back to the tattoo ordinance. I generally refer to this, not the proper way, so excuse me. But what we did there is we said we couldn't say you can't be a tattoo studio anymore, so you can't have any more than so many in the circle, which essentially stopped the growth of them. That's what I don't like about this ordinance, and I think you and I are on the same page here. I don't like that we're telling a private property owner that they can't do it. I don't like it. It doesn't sit right. It doesn't feel right. And I don't like it. I know we've committed to it, and I know that this is the direction of the council, but
Well, I'm curious if anyone knows or has thought about, because one of the concerns that when it came up in previous meetings, and it seemed very valid to me because it was going on in the world and it's going on in the United States, and different states were receiving unwelcome shipped guests to them, and with a one-way ticket. And so it hasn't been, as far as I know, and as he's demonstrated, it's not been going on here. There's been other people showing up, but when we think that our federal government may be sending guests with a one-way ticket to our community with no plans thereafter is concerning to me. And it is definitely, there's some fear based in acceptance or willingness to go along with this, but then also have the conflict of this gentleman is, invested in a business, taking the risk, and now we're about to, because of our fears and concerns, valid or not, we're about to take away a source of income from him, and that's, balanced by the, it's funny, I've not heard from any citizen talking about a concern about the bus stop. I've heard it from us, but I've not heard it from a citizen. Have you? Have you heard from citizens that talk about the concerns of the bus stop?
not specifically the stop.
Okay. You guys?
Absolutely.
Okay. Travis?
I have heard concerns from about the bus stop when it was over here. I have had 3 people discuss with me about the bus stop over there. It is a tough one because I completely agree with Mr. Mead, but in the same sense, we have committed to finding a way to solve our problem. I also know that I believe there's, in this article right here, knowing who gets off the bus and who doesn't get off the bus. I don't know that anybody can really truly know that. I will say that it seems like our presence of vagrancy and homeless has increased. Seems like there's only so many ways that they can travel. When you see an article in here that you have towns spending $33,000 a year to ship them other places. Sure. I believe that this, to my knowledge, based off of the research that I've done, this is the only Greyhound bus stop between Pensacola and Panama City.
Yes. Yes.
Which seems a little odd to me because I would think that the Greyhound bus stop would kind of follow the interstate instead of come down and be on the coast.
So it follows where the population is and where people want to go, which is usually the beach and then bigger cities. We have routes that go on the interstate, but they just bypass everywhere that is not on the interstate. So we have a mix of both. And Greyhound also receives subsidies from the state, not on this route, routes elsewhere in the state that serve rural communities. So our ridership in the state is very both urban and rural, but also 50% of our riders are over the age of 55, and 60% of them are retired or employed for full-time, and only 1% of our riders in Florida are migrants. So we do have a just predominantly lower and middle income. They make less than the national average, but they are retired and they're employed full-time in Florida.
Do you guys track who's paying for the tickets? Do you have that ability?
We do not.
Yeah, I think so. And the reason I ask that is I know that there's quite a bit of municipalities to the west of us. Biloxi and Mobile have been fighting quite a bit because they're shipping their homeless populations around to each other, and based off of what we see coming off of the bus and what we see in the increase, you can't help but to think that that's happening here, and kind of giving our commitment that we're going to get this thing figured out. I kind of feel like I am a private property rights guy, but again, at the same time, I kind of feel like that they're not absolute, and the sense that they're not absolute is when you're negatively affecting somebody else. Do I have the ability to 100% prove that right here? I don't think so, but I think that the only way to know is to probably go down this, there is a phase out process, and I'm sure within a year we'll know whether we see a decrease or whether we don't. And I'm sure at that point in time we can readdress the situation at that point in time if we see fit.
Thank you, I appreciate that, because it's a rub. It's what we're talking about, that rub, but, you know, I sat here listening to you, and it's what we do every day up here. We adversely affect some, i.e. might raise the rent on bow legs, and while we're watching out for the city's interests as well. So, I mean, thank you.
Mr. Schmidt?
So you represent Greyhound, right?
Yes.
You're essentially, depending on how this ordinance plays out over the next couple of readings, you're going to find another location, correct?
If we're able to within the city, if the
It
zoning-
might not be within the city, but in this region, you would look to hunt
we will
for where the
attempt
people want to go. It just might not be in the municipality of the city of Fort Walton Beach.
We'll attempt to.
So, and I think it's very similar to like a delivery vessel. I mean, there's some issues we all have where we don't want to put a private property owner that is counting on that revenue to support their family, like Mr. Patel is, but also to trying to mitigate a certain, and to continue a certain, making progress of eliminating certain services to try to improve our culture. While, you know, Greyhound will find another location, just like delivery vessels, if we put a moratorium on some of those delivery vessels, they would find another location outside the city of Fort Walton Beach to do their business. Greyhound's could find another location to do its business, and it's unfortunate it's having an impact on Mr. Patel. We're no intentions of trying to impact someone's business through the process of improving the culture of the city of Fort Walton Beach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any in Okaloosa County? Any Greyhound stops in Okaloosa County? This is the only one, correct?
Yes, sir.
Just listening to you there, Mr. Schmidt, I read some county commission minutes not too long ago, and I saw some discussion about the bus routes up there, and if you're correct, and you find an establishment in Crestview, you find an establishment in Niceville, wherever it may be, we've got city bus routes, county bus routes, we'll get them back here to us.
And our preference, and we have done this elsewhere in Florida, with the city of Tampa, with the city of Tallahassee, is we work with the city to keep service in the city and to co-locate with other transit at a public facility. And we found that it works very well, and it keeps the service and keeps the accessibility that we need.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council? Council, please vote. And it does pass 6-1. Thank you, council. At this point, I'd like to take a 10-minute break because we've got a lot more to cover tonight. So we're going to take a 10-minute recess. We'll see everybody at 8:26.
So let me know.
We'll get everybody back in their seats, please. I'll call this meeting back to order. It is 8:26. Thank you. We're at number 9.3, 2154, ordinance creating Code of Ordinance, Chapter 8.13, regulating bus stop operations. We don't have our attorney.
But I believe in her absence, the first two ordinance may have rendered this ordinance moot if we could perhaps consider tabling this item.
I did chat briefly with Ms. Kopp, and she was actually going to propose just possibly letting this one die, just really kind of in place of the others. If the first two didn't go through and it was going to be an ongoing permanent type use, it'd probably be good to put these standards in. If we're going to work on this phase out approach of it, then this really probably isn't needed.
Okay. All right. So we will table 9.3. It could come back.
We don't really need to come back. So.
All right. Scratch 9.3. We're on 9.4. 2155, ordinance creating Code of Ordinances, Chapter 11.16, photo speed enforcement in school zones. And again, she's not here to read. Okay. Kim, is it all right if I read in her place? Sure. Okay. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, providing for authority, amending Chapter 11, traffic and vehicles, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Chief Page.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This ordinance, we had brought on a discussion item back on June 25th, 2024, and we had previewed some of it. To go back over some of the high points, on May 31st, 2023, Governor Ron DeSantis signed into law House Bill 657, which is enforcement of school zones, photo enforcement of school zones. FDOT then published rules in December of 23, and several municipalities across the state of Florida have already entered into local enabling ordinances. Two municipalities locally are Niceville and Shalimar, which already have ordinances for photo enforcement. And photo enforcement is not photo enforcement, but speed and traffic complaints are one of the top things that we receive in the police department. Several vendors have reached out, I know, to various council members to kind of highlight some of the programs. Vera Mobility, and it was attached in the backup documentation, did a speed surveys, and they went to 5 different school zones. In each one of the school zones they surveyed, there were numerous violations of greater than 10 miles an hour, which is the triggering point in the state statute that a violation has to be over 10 miles an hour. So the city has to establish which school zones or which areas they would want to have photo enforcement installed. We have drafted a city ordinance, which is the enabling ordinance, which is attached. And we'd like to see council review and provide direction on the enabling ordinance. And I can take any questions about the ordinance.
Thank you, sir. Questions for Chief Bays from
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
If the ordinance does pass, when would we be wanting to start executing the plan?
It would have to go for the second reading. If it passed the second reading, we'd have to have a discussion with finance and purchasing to see if we would piggyback off an existing contract or put it out to RFP. Depending on which route we would take, that would take a time period there. Once we established a vendor, or we could establish vendors if we wanted to, it takes about 6 months from the vendors that have reached out to us once they get a signed contract to start the enforcement period, or to have cameras up and operational. In the ordinance, there's an educational period, so you have to basically go through your procurement process, whatever amount of time that would take. Then there'd be about a 6-month build out of the system, and then after that 6 months, there would be about a 30-day education requirement that has to be done with warnings prior to actual enforcement.
The reason why I'm asking, I'm a big supporter of it. I know we're always looking to try to find ways to change behaviors of speed and things like that, and the ultimate objective is for safety and to change the behaviors. So through that process of either trying to get it on the budget or the procurement process, what I was backing into, I really like your theory of the triple E, right? Educate, encourage, and then enforce. So that would give time for the community after the second reading that, hey, this is the direction we're going. We don't have the equipment installed. We're not ready to do it yet, but that education time would give the community, I think,
Yes.
some proactive awareness to not speed through the speed zones of the schools, but if they do, they were definitely educated and encouraged and ultimately enforced to hopefully change the behavior. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Allegretto.
And Chief, thank you for bringing this before us. Thanks for the discussion before. I thought it was great. Just so the public knows, and I'm going to form this in a question, but the school zones that we're talking about here are, it looks like all of the schools that are in the city of Fort Walton Beach. Is that correct?
Yes. So when I was doing research on this item, Miami-Dade County listed every single school zone in the unincorporated section of their county. And their rationale was that every school zone has a speeding issue and every school zone could benefit from the enhanced enforcement. In our ordinance, we wanted to list out, if you read through the ordinance, we listed out both the public and private schools that have marked school zones. So there are other private schools, but they may not have a marked school zone. The requirement of the statute is to have a marked school zone. So we wanted to list out every school zone that was marked within the city. In the ordinance, it also says, though, that final discretion to implement a speed detection device will be jointly made between the city manager, the police chief, and the vendor. There may be some locations that geographically or geometry doesn't allow for the device to be placed. There may be a school zone that on discussion between the city manager, myself, and the vendor, it may just not work with the number of violations that are actually occurring in that school zone. But enforcement at the other school zones, which is now being taken care of by photo enforcement, will allow for now resources to possibly go to that school zone where a device could not be installed. And in the ordinance, it also allows by referendum for the city council to change that authorized list of school zones if they wish to change at a future date.
And I know it's absolutely written here, and it's certainly been discussed in the past, but this will require no financial commitment from the city.
Correct. So the way the system works, and the one that was attached was a Vera Mobility that did the survey for us, but all the vendors have a very similar model. It would come through when we put it out to RFP, or if we piggybacked off. It's almost like the parking discussion we had a few weeks ago here. It's all based on a percentage of the fine revenues that are collected. They can range anywhere from the high teens to low 20s, depending on which vendor you go with. They would take a portion of the fines that are collected to cover their cost for infrastructure, mailing out the notices of violation. The cost the city may incur, depending on how many violations we get, ultimately somebody, either a sworn law enforcement officer or a certified traffic enforcement specialist, has to be the final approval for that violation. So if the violation numbers are low, we can probably absorb that. If the violation numbers are high, we may look for a retired officer or somebody that we could bring in on a part-time basis, either as a sworn or as a traffic enforcement specialist, almost like our code enforcement officer that works for the police department. We put them through parking enforcement specialists. There'd be another short course we'd have to put through that we could do internally that would allow them to be a traffic enforcement specialist. That person could then hit that final approve button, and then they'd have to come and testify and provide whatever evidence if somebody was to appeal one of the violations. So in that aspect, there could be a cost, but that cost would be offset by the revenue the city would collect, because then you'd be at a point where there was numerous violations that are being issued.
Gotcha. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Other questions from council? Mr. Walker.
Yeah, thank you, Chief Beige. Of our city school zones currently, how many traffic speeding tickets are issued on a annual basis in school zones? Do you know? I mean, do we track that?
We do track it. I can give you the number at the second reading. I wouldn't be able to pull that number off the top of my head, but I can tell you that especially in the beginning of school, we spend more time in the school zones, and we'd like to spend even more time in the school zones, but we get pulled away to do other things from the school zones. If you look at the Vera Mobility study that was attached, they actually ran a traffic study that will show you how many vehicles were traveling over the speed limit and theoretically could have received a speeding ticket in those various school zones if somebody was there.
Yeah, and the last time, or the first time I believe it was brought up here, I was like, well, hey, can you do it up Eglin Parkway? Because if a citizen of citizen concerns that I hear a lot about is traffic and speeding on Eglin, and that's when you said, no, it's only in school zones and that stuff. So the whole concept, though, which is maybe only interesting to me, but we're privatizing law enforcement. One element in monetizing it.
Privatizing it because it still has to be approved by a city official, and the city official is still going to be the person that comes in to testify against the violator in a proceeding. So I think we're leveraging technology and private industry to more efficiently run law enforcement versus privatization.
For sure. I mean, if we have 6 school zones that are all being monitored by cameras and tickets issued and revenue coming in from it, the private company's being paid through that system, and so are we. So it is a form of privatizing it. So I just find that interesting. Thank you.
Other questions from Chief Page, or Chief Page from council? Mr. Smith?
Have we gotten any phone calls from schools or anything like that with this being an issue? I haven't heard anything about this, so other than seeing this guy spam the crap out of our emails, because the state is allowing it now and he sees it as a way to make, sell some systems and make some revenue. I'm just wondering if we're aware of a problem, or you're aware of a problem that I'm not aware of.
We do get concerns that come in as general concerns. We get concerns about speeding on the racetrack. We'll get concerns that will come in from various people that will talk about the speed, about kids crossing the street, and the safety of the kids in the school zone. So we will get general complaints that will trickle in throughout the year. We don't get a direct complaint from the Okaloosa School Board to say we have speeding outside our school, but we do get complaints from residents or from people passing through the areas. And a lot of times they may not directly say the school zone, but they'll make reference to racetrack. They'll make reference to kids crossing the street. It's unsafe for kids to cross the street. So we do get those complaints that come in.
Yeah, because just reading this data, I got to be honest with you, it's just me being a little skeptical because I've been dropping my niece off at Choctaw here in the morning when school started for the first couple of days, and I'm sitting here thinking like, there's no way this many people were speeding 10 miles an hour over the speed limit based off of what I saw there. 2 sheriff's deputies, a Fort Walton Beach PD, the line in the right lane backed up all the way past the old fire station, so I don't know where the data comes from, and it kind of makes me question it a little bit.
One is that the start of school is always different. The first 2 weeks is always different than the next few weeks. The traffic is heavier, and you probably won't see the Fort Walton car out there every single day once the school year continues. The other thing is that in the state statute and our ordinance, it allows for enforcement a half hour prior to the school day and a half hour after the school day. So when you come speeding down racetrack at noon time and the beacons are not flashing to go 25 through the school zone, but it's a normal speed limit, that's probably where the bulk of those speeding complaints come through, because it's not just during the beacon times, it's throughout the school day.
But that thing will not trigger a ticket unless the beacons are on.
No, it triggers it
regardless.
A half hour prior to the school day and a half hour post school day. So your enforcement time, depending
during school as well.
We just throw out arbitrary times. But say Choctaw starts at 7 o'clock, the enforcement can start at 6:30, and it could go all the way through. If school gets out at 2, it'd go from 2:30, so it'd go from 6:30 to 2:30. So you have those 8 hours that would now be for enforcement, and it would depend if it was during the beacon times, it would be the reduced speed limit. If it was during normal times, it would be the full speed limit on the roadway. And at both times, it'd be whatever is 10 miles over. So you'll have Councilman Walker, you asked about Eglin Parkway. I believe through this, you'll have a lot of carryover effect. Because when somebody now is going down racetrack and they're speeding down racetrack and they wind up getting a photo enforcement ticket, that's going to be in the back of their mind, and now they're probably going to drive slower or safer on all roadways and not just
they're going to drive 9 miles an hour underneath, so it
or just not. I mean, but that's just the nature of the beast.
Better than 19.
Thank you. Other questions from council for Chief Page?
I would like, if you bring back, just curious how many our existing force has issued through the 1 to 3 years, whatever y'all track on school zone speed violations. I guess during the beacon times.
We can get that because the statute is a different statute when the beacons are flashing, so that won't be that applicable.
Gotcha. Anyone from the audience, Mr. Naren?
Going from the south end of town to the north end of town, I can't get from my property to another property without going through 3 different school zones. So my point is that I can see the need for somebody to have the photo suggestions because people get impatient with waiting in line to pick up their kids. So I was wondering, is there any way, especially over at Elliott Point Elementary School and at Choctaw, if there could be a portion of the parking lot that would be set aside for, like what we have at the airports, for calling for the parent instead of waiting on the street where everybody gets impatient and, you know, whichever way you're going, you get impatient. And then Elliott Point, I've noticed people are starting to cut through the park because you can't get around the cars that are waiting to pick up their children. So again, if we could take part of that parking lot and make it a call zone waiting, I don't know what they call it at the airport, but a call zone waiting so that the child can go to cross the road with the police officer, get to their parents' car, and it not block traffic. Then maybe they would not be so frustrated and speed through the rest of the road. Just a suggestion.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other comments from the public? Council, any questions for Chief Bay? Council, may we get a motion?
Mayor, I move for adoption of ordinance number 2155 to amend chapter 11 of the Code of Ordinances related to traffic and vehicles and add section 11.16 for photo enforcement in school zones.
Second.
Been moved by Councilman Allegretto and second by Councilman Jeter to adopt ordinance 2155 to amend chapter 11 of the Code of Ordinances related to traffic and vehicles and add section 11.16 for photo enforcement in school zones. Further comment?
I just a question for Chief.
Yes, sir.
So I'm just playing it out. So first reading, second reading, if it passes and goes out for RFP, no cost to us, you know, that's a big selling point and they know it and they make it. So, you know, we get a contract for the year or 2 or 3, whatever it turns out to be. I've known of a game that's played sometimes where they give it to you free to begin with, and then after that it's, you know, costs have gone up of maintaining and servicing. I'm guessing that'll just be an issue that's brought back to council and say, well, it's gone from free to this year. We either have to remove them or pay them $37,000, and then we'll compare that to the saved benefits over a new officer, I'm sure. But any thoughts on?
I mean, I don't disagree with you that the current pricing model from every single vendor is a percentage of the fine. If the program is extremely effective and we write 0 tickets, then yes, whenever we sign a 3-year contract, a 5-year contract, at some point they may come back to us and say, yeah, we can no longer do a percentage of the fine amount. Now we have to do some type of hard cost. And then yes, it would be up to the city council to make a decision. Are we going to invest X amount into the program, or do now we remove the program? And just to give you an idea of the fine, because that question didn't come up, it's a $100 fine. It doesn't put points on your license. It's a $100 fine. $20 goes to the state of Florida. $60 comes back to the city. $3 goes to the Criminal Justice and Training Standards Commission, which is the certifying board for law enforcement in the state of Florida. $12 goes to the school board, and they can use that for the improvements like you talked about, whether it's infrastructure improvements or any type of improvement that the school board wants to make. And $5 goes to the local school crossing guard program. So we have a school crossing guard program here in the city of Fort Walton Beach, so those $5 would go to assist in the funding of the school crossing guard. So of the $60 that comes back to the city, that's where the percentage comes from. And if you were to take the 20%, or I've never seen any of them less than in the high teens. They're all in the high teens to low 20s. But even if you just took the $20 one, if you had 20, that'd be $12 that would basically go to your vendor.
So we get 60 that comes back to the city, their percentage is based off of the 60.
It comes out of the city's portion.
And what is that percentage? I missed that. What'd you say?
It would all depend on which RFP we entered into.
I got you.
I've seen from other cities that
But
have
if you
gone
called
through
it
the
20%.
RFP process, I've seen it as low as 15, 16%.
I got you.
And I've seen it as high as 23, 24, 25%.
20% is $18
Or
on
$18.
60. Gotcha.
So then the difference would be
Yeah,
if
6 times 2. He's helping me with math. I needed it.
30% would be 18.
Yeah, there you go.
So 20%
Yeah.
would be 12. But the difference in some of the percentages are what else they give you in their program. Some will give you a license plate reader as part of the package. Some will give you basically a surveillance camera that's mounted at their pole. So some of the companies will provide us some extras to it, and it's just included in the percentage. So if you just want a straight up program, you probably get in the lower teens. If you get a few of the bells and whistles, it probably goes in the mid-20s, just depending on which program you structure.
Thank you.
Mr. Allegretto.
So I'm glad that Mr. Walker asked those questions because I would like to ask this or state this as well. I think that's a really good point that you just brought up regarding the additional things. Because our goal, I think, as a council here is not that this is going to be this great revenue generating thing for the city. And we're going to fund 3 new officers with these fines where we're getting $36, $20. Like, that's not the goal here. The goal is to make it safe around school zones, to create better habits in the drivers, etc. So if there are add-on things that make schools safer, whether those are cameras or whatever other things there are, I think it would be a really good thing to add those things on. Because again, the percentage of the money that's coming back is not what it's about, especially when there's no hard cost or outlay from the city. So anything that we can do to make those areas safer, prevent a child abduction, something like that, like it'd be a big deal if we can add those things on. So thank you for explaining that as well.
No problem.
Mr. Smith.
Brings a good point to me. How about, and would you entertain, I don't know if this would be another motion or if this would be an amendment to your motion, the revenue generated from this be put back into traffic control devices and traffic calming devices?
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, there may be, we have to look at the statute. I outlined the overall categories and the $60 that comes back to the city. But I also believe in the statute there may be some allowable uses and non-allowable usage for the money that comes back to the city.
I just didn't want it to go back into the general fund and get lost and add somewhere else.
But I think
If
the statute
this really
takes
isn't a
care of that a
money-making
little bit.
thing, then we can put it towards more traffic control devices.
Yeah, if we could fund speed feedback signs in other neighborhoods or stuff
And I
like
can
that.
bring you back with the allowable usages at the second reading. I can talk to either our city attorney or Jeff Burns, who I worked on the ordinance with some, or some of the other cities, and see what the exact allowable usages are for that portion that comes back to the city.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions from council? Council, please vote. Does pass unanimously. Thank you, council. That'll bring us to item 9.5, 2156, ordinance amending the code of ordinances, section 2.06.03, firefighters pension trust fund. Ms. Cobb.
Thank you, Mayor. This is ordinance 2156, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, amending the City of Fort Walton Beach Municipal Firefighters Pension Trust Fund, amending the section pertaining to benefit amounts and eligibility, amending the section pertaining to vesting, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. This is first reading.
Thank you, ma'am. Chief Morgan.
Yes. Honorable Mayor and Council. So this ordinance just changes the language that's currently in the Code of Ordinances that will match align with the current summary plan description of the pension. And it deals with early retirement benefits, penalties, calculations, and vesting. If you want the details of all of it, I have to give it to you. But there's no financial impact to the city. We just ask that you approve this ordinance so both the summary plan and code of ordinances match up.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mr. Smith?
You said there's no financial impact, but I see where it struck out 2.5% and now it's 3%. Was that already, we just didn't have the verbiage updated, or?
Right, so the penalty for the early retirement benefit has always been 0.25% off your calculation, and then 0.25% for every 30 days that you leave early. So over 2 decades ago, our multiplier was 2.75%, so it spelled out that. And it was changed, like I said, 20 plus years ago to 3.25%. So they never updated the numbers in the code of ordinances, but the penalty stays the same. It's still, if you leave early and take it, you lose that 0.25% off calculations, and you lose 0.25% for every 30 days that you leave early. And if you also notice when it talks about the early retirement benefits, just struck out, the wording that was currently in there says if you took an early retirement and you froze it, then your benefit calculation would be based on your normal retirement date, which means you'd be paying more than what they did. So that's been scratched through, so it says it'd be calculated to your early retirement date. If that makes sense.
Other questions for Chief Morgan? Anyone?
But just to clarify, the 10 years of credited service upon termination is already set at 3%.
Yeah, our multiplier right now is 3.25. If you take an early retirement, which means you have
It's
to
the
be,
1/4 point.
Yeah, which means you have to be
Okay.
at least 45, and you have to have 10 years of service. And if you pull it early, then you lose, you no longer get 3.25% multiplier, goes to a 3. And if you pull it early, you also lose 0.25%, which is 3% a year off your benefit.
Anyone from the public wish to comment on this? Back to you, council, can we get a motion?
Mayor, so move staff's recommendation.
Second.
Been moved by Councilman Schmidt, second by Councilman Smith to adopt ordinance 2156 to amend the City of Fort Walton Beach Municipal Firefighters Pension Trust Fund, Section 2.06.03, Firefighters Pension Trust Fund, as detailed in the ordinance. Any comments? Comments? Council, please vote. Bless you.
Bless you.
Does pass unanimously. Thank you, council. That brings us to item 10, action, direction, discussion. We removed item 10.1. That's going to be, it's already been dealt with. We're now at item 10.2, request city council input regarding premium parking contract terms for parking management services in the city hall parking lot. Mr. Pacini.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mayor. Yes, as you know, we brought this up to council before, and we did say when we worked out the contract with premium parking, we would bring it back to council for just discussion. What they had done is they had kind of put forward some parking rates as an idea. It was a piggyback contract off of Lee County. Basically, the premium parking would get 50% of the net revenue, and then they would supply the full-time employee, as we discussed at the previous council meeting, for all the enforcement on the property. The rates can be negotiated, can be set by the city throughout the year based on tourism and slow times and whatnot. So this was an agreement that we bring back to council as we sit with the once we discuss with them. After council agreed to move forward with the parking plan.
Thank you, sir. Questions from council for Mr. Peters? Mr. Walker?
Yeah, just, kind of, I guess, on the bigger picture thing. When this all started, it seemed as though it was being driven by a concern by the trust, that donated the land to the city, that there was a problem about us parking, or parking that was going on here that was non-city related. It was related to the people across the street parking over here, and what did the deed restrictions say and all of that. And I mean, none of that's addressed as a part of this. This just looks like, I'm not saying I'm opposed to it or in favor of it. It's just what happened to that concern that the family trust had a problem about us allowing parking out here that brought us to this point. Well, no,
I mean, I would say I just recall the meeting that we had not too long ago, 2 months, something like that, and Attorney Burns was filling in. And I think that he said in his legal opinion that it did not conflict with the lease that we have or the whatever it's called.
The deed.
It didn't conflict with the deed restrictions.
Okay, that's, okay, I
mean, and obviously Ms. Cobb could probably speak to that one.
But Travis, I've been putting it on you, but you've been a liaison of sorts, so I'm like, I'm looking to you to say, what happened to their concerns?
Yeah, it's the same thing. You know, I mean, we asked Jeff Burns, the city attorney at that point in time, if he believed that there was an issue here, and he said no in his personal opinion. So, moving forward.
Okay, and then so, calling a spade, this is a revenue source for the city for people to park here, and it's nothing related to the problems that kind of started this discussion about parking.
I mean, I guess that depends on
right. I mean, isn't it? I mean,
who you are, what you think. I think it kind of serves multiple purposes. In my opinion, you know, what it did derive from was we had private citizens complaining. We were having discussions with staff. In the middle of that is when we got notified by the family that, you know, hey, look, we don't want private business using this piece of property, which at the time we were having parking problems and stuff like that kind of all made sense. Hey, what can we do to resolve this? I believe their recommendation was lock the lot down. I think from our point of view, that wasn't really feasible. You know, so what was the best way to manage the lot? We went out, I specifically went out and tried to find some alternatives. I found this alternative, which, you know, I believe resolves some issues with private individuals believing that private businesses were using public property for private gain. So I think that now can resolve maybe that issue to an extent. I think it can also resolve some issues with the businesses using this or potentially using this as their employee parking, which it's not. It's parking for City Hall and things that happen at City Hall. So I think it'll eliminate some of that when you actually have to pay to park here. And then we don't have to hire an FTE to manage the parking lot, which is essentially what the only thing that we could think of outside of this, you know, to manage the parking lot, because it's like code enforcement, anything else. If you're not there, they're going to do it. So how do we control it without physically being there? And this was kind of the best solution that we could find.
And we're not necessarily controlling it. We're just charging them for access. Nobody's going to be restricted. The employees can come still park over here, right?
I think it controls it.
Can the employees still come park over here?
If they want to pay whatever rate it is,
right.
They can come
Sure.
park over here. But I highly doubt that an employee is probably going to come over here and spend potentially $100 a week just to park to come to work. You know, so
I got to park somewhere.
The business will find a way to park its employees. You know, I know you don't have to deal with this because you're in the downtown district.
I know.
Downtown overlay.
Yeah.
But the rest of us outside of that, we have to provide parking for our employees and for our patrons and stuff like that. So.
And I think I heard some complaints back then from across the street about this, and it was like, hey, when we opened up here and started our business, we could use it, and now, I mean, it's going to be the waiter, the waitress, the bus guy. They're still going to be using it. We're just going to be taking $100 a week. Did you say for a month?
I don't know what.
I don't know how much.
I'm just throwing a number out.
I didn't know either. I don't know what.
I can tell you this: it will change habits. It will.
Yeah, I know.
When you go to park downtown, if I had one lot that you had to pay to park at, and there was other lots that didn't pay to park at, where are you parking?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. We got, you know.
So, to what extent it changes it, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's where the unintended consequences come from. We've talked about it out here where they end up parking down there, walking across the street. Now that's a problem, but it's okay. I mean, I really started that with what happened to the problem from the family, and it was apparently we were going to closing the deed, and then we've got a legal opinion now that says that's not true, but we still arrived at a solution for a problem that no longer exists.
I don't know that I would say that the problem no longer
I got
exists.
you.
It's probably
That problem,
more of a
that-
seasonal problem.
Gotcha. That problem doesn't
Because I bet
exist.
you if you come here this weekend, this parking lot's going to be pretty full. You know, and then after that, it's probably not going to be pretty full until spring rolls around again, and then it'll be slam full again.
All right.
Gotcha.
Other comments from council?
Do we know the
Mr.
rates?
Mead.
What's that?
Do we know the rates yet?
Yeah, I mean, just a proposed, but it can change throughout. The city would notify Premium Parking who runs the overall operation, what we would want the rates to be, but
They're here?
The proposed would be, and it is an example, like 2 hours would be $8, 4 hours 10, 6 hours 12, 15, 24 hour parking would be $18, but it can be negotiated with, not negotiated, it can be changed throughout the year based on the time.
What's 8 hours? Did you say that?
It just went, the proposed rates are 2, 4, 6, 12, and 24. There wasn't an 8 or 10. Which you could do that.
I'm just thinking about the work shift over there. It's 8-hour shift. You know, what's it gonna cost them per day to park over here if that's what they're doing? Sounds like $16, $15 a day. Is that somewhere in between
12-hour
those
shift is
spaces?
15 is what's proposed.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Other comments from council? Mr. Mead?
Back to your point, we all have a different perspective. My perspective is this was a mechanism that the staff and Mr. Smith came to ensure that the public would have spaces available to do city business at the city hall. Because it's my understanding that this full-time employee will ensure that no matter what other public uses public parking, that there will always be a sufficient amount of spaces to continue the business of City Hall here. So from my perspective, these folks are going to make sure that there are spaces dedicated for city business. I know there's many different things, city purposes, City Hall, provides, but that bill paying and some of the permitting, all that,
Sure.
those spaces will be allocated and available.
Not leased,
And-
not rented.
Yes,
or-
yes,
or
no,
whatever.
yes, yeah, that's my understanding,
Yeah.
from my perspective. And I also had a question for staff. It mentions 50% net and then paying for a full-time employee. So will the salary come out first and then other expenses, and then how do they define other expenses? And have y'all run that, or is it 50%?
Yeah, and they kind of gave a breakdown as a Premium Parking proposes a 50% net revenue share with the city, and has anticipated annual total net revenue of $137,400. This would enable Premium Parking to staff a full-time 40-hour-a-week parking ambassador, compliance agent, annual parking management enforcement parking.
I guess my question would be more on the accounting side. What constitutes net? As opposed to
The
gross?
breakdown that you're looking at, I don't have it in front of me. I don't know what they're doing with their portion with their salary worker. They're just gonna net revenue, I don't have that.
Yeah, it'd be an employee at Premium Parking, not at the cities, but.
Okay, but are they also
I get what
gonna?
you're saying.
Are they gonna charge?
You're using the word net, but it should really maybe be sales.
Or gross, yeah. But is it 50% of what they
After
bring in?
all whatever expenses
But
come
yeah,
in.
because we all know, or not all know, there's a lot of small businesses out there that want to,
Sales, gross, net.
Yeah. So,
Which line is it?
yeah. So that would help me if I knew what I could. What expenses is corporate writing off to determine net? Travel, and advertising, and I would like to know those.
That's not in front of us.
Yeah, the revenue share looks like it's
Sales tax, gross revenue 147, sales tax of 9,600 comes off of that.
down to
And then your total revenue is 137.4. They have $4,400 in operating expenses that come off of that, and then there's the 50% comes off.
Yeah,
of
it's that table
I missed that
that.
They get 66 and we get 66 is the proposal. I mean, on this estimated net.
And then
out of
they
the
pay
budget.
over, they pay their guy.
Yeah, we don't care what they do with theirs,
Right.
66.
Right.
That's right.
They supply the guy.
After operating expenses is taken out.
Yes.
And I think that's what I also kind of heard too, would be interesting to know before the deal is done, what all can they capture inside of their operating expense? You know, yeah, okay.
Any other comments from council? Anyone from the public wish to talk to this? Council, maybe we get a motion.
Mayor, I would like to make a motion to instruct the city manager to enter into a contract with Premium Parking Services for management of the city parking lot, city hall parking lot.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah.
Been moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Allegretto to allow the city manager to enter into a contractual agreement with Premium Parking for parking lot management services of the city hall parking lot. Was there a comment?
Just one, the original motion that I had made last time included what we were going to use the money for. I guess my question is should I make a subsequent motion after that to allocate that revenue towards improvements at this property, 107 Miracle Strip, or should I amend the
You can
motion?
make a subsequent motion,
Okay.
or do them one at a time.
Okay.
All right, been moved to second. Any further comment?
No.
Council, please vote. Does pass 6-0. Mr. Smith, would you like to make another motion?
I would. I'd like to make a motion to allocate the revenue from premium parking towards any improvements at 107 Miracle Strip Parkway, also known as City Hall.
Okay. Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Meade to allocate the revenue from premium parking proceeds to improvements here at City Hall, 107 Miracle Strip Parkway. Further comment? Comment?
Just maybe.
Yes, sir.
That obviously could be tomorrow or next year, or it could be 10 years from now if there were a new city hall on this location, correct?
Can use the money for anything that happens on this property.
10-4. Thank you.
Anyone from the public wish to comment? Council, please vote. Does pass unanimously. Thank you, Council. Brings us to item 10.3, lease agreement for property at 208 Perry Road Southeast. Peters.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this was a lease agreement that initially was brought back to council or brought to council in August of 23. After it was approved by council, it went back to the property owners and they had some issues with the insurance, and so it kind of spurred a 12-month back and forth negotiations with the city attorney and myself. And up to date, in the attachments, even as late as Friday night, the latest agreements that they have sent forward was the 5-year lease agreement with the ability after 3.5 years to void the agreement with 120 days notice. But it also puts a stipulation on the use of the property that listed a number of things, including concerts, movies, flea markets, farmers markets that would prohibit that on the property. So it's still on the agenda tonight for council to decide what we as a city would like to do with that property.
All right, sir. Questions from council for Mr. Peters, Mr. Allegretto?
So it seems like this is a very unusual request. Is that what
I would agree with that.
Does the city lease any other premises from a private party where the public is able to use that property?
The parking lot, for example, at the downtown.
Okay. And so in that lease agreement, is there anything like this where if we put up a couple boxes?
No.
Put the corner in and have a little farmer's market, and all of a sudden we lose the thing. So this is a pretty big investment for the city to make in improving that property. The turf alone was what, $90,000, $97,000?
100, a little bit over that.
Okay, so $100,000. And then, so in the terms of this lease, we could just lose all that investment after 3.5 years if they determined at any point you violated this lease.
You could theoretically pull it up and relocate it. But.
Yeah.
And this was over the last year, just with some direction from some council. You know, I did reach out to the property owners and ask if they'd be willing to sell the property to come back to council for approval, and they weren't interested in selling the property. They actually own the whole block, the middle of the vacant property, and the properties on either side. They weren't interested in doing that at this point, so we continued back and forth with just lease negotiations, trying to get on the same page.
Well, I'll save my statement for the statement portion. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Any other questions from council? Mr. Walker?
Dude, I kind of want to take two approaches to this. One is the contract management side of things, and it might go along with the process that's involved as well. But, you know, I sent an email regarding the notes that were made here in the background, and there were some errors there that were made. And so I want to talk about those because for me, and I think the rest of the council, it's imperative that what we get on the background and other such things is accurate. And there's a lot of inaccuracies in it. I say a lot, there's a few. And they're pretty big to me. It says that in the discussion on the background, which is today's city memorandum, that the discussion earlier this year, staff identified the property as a good candidate. It's actually last year, 5 of 23, not earlier this year. You know, and so I know that's just a minor thing, but when we're dealing with contracts, those minor things really matter. And going on to the contract itself, I think that requirement that they don't allow any special, it was a poison pill. They started out, their first, that May of 23 was their proposal to us of their lease terms. And it said they understood there was going to be special events, festivals and other such things there. So for it to come at the end and it be the reason that it kills it, I mean, I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball here today, but I think I know what's going to happen to this deal. And it's because there's a poison pill in it. I'm not in favor of leasing that space. Of what we all were told from the meeting we had back in August of 23, that there was going to be a stage performance, it was going to be for festivals and all of that, and now that's been taken from us. Mm-hmm. I'm not interested in investing any money there.
Do I hear a motion?
Not yet. I'll be happy to give it. I will be happy to give it. But, you know, also looking at it, the reason I took a special interest in this, Jeff, is because I do leasing. It's my private business and contract management. Sometimes I have to go back and look at a contract that fell apart or that we're being sued over or whatever else, and what happened, why and when. And there's a lot of things in here. I know hindsight's valuable to us all, and we're counting on you to continually, as we all do, and all of my agents, myself, we just get better and better at contract review and understanding. But, you know, I talked with Jeff this afternoon, Burns, about it and was trying to get an understanding. These documents don't share. It doesn't say who prepared the lease, who lined through. There's a whole lot of contract management. It's my understanding now, and correct me if I'm wrong. What would you say other than the insurance, what was the biggest problem in all this contract management that you noticed or recognized looking back at it? Are there any problems?
It was, well, the insurance, because what we initially sent, and the city's held with the sovereign immunity with $300,000, when it went back to them, whoever spurred the thought of, hey, if they have festivals and we could get sued, they said, hey, we need to look at insurance, we need $2 million. So then we as a city went back and said, hey, we can't do that because we're limited to $300,000. So it went back and forth over the last year on how can we check with tons of companies, with our insurance companies, trying to find somebody that would insure the property up to $2 million. And then it went to them saying, hey, we can up our insurance to cover that if the city, pays the difference in the premium. And then they said, well, if we do that, we want to put a limit on what events. We don't really want to do special events in case somebody gets hurt. So then it went back and forth. Well, we can do that with written approval. Well, in the latest one that he's Friday night, the written approval was taken out. So there's no written approval, even ability to say, hey, we want to show a movie in the park.
And I think from a negotiation contract standpoint, if I was representing a buyer or seller or either side of it, that was a poison pill. It was designed to kill it. Mm-hmm. They know that was important, that we were going to have it, and then to withdraw it at the end, it looks like a poison pill for sure. And then I think the other thing I pointed out on there, which was, I look at language and intent of contracts and stuff, and we never talked about a passive park. But on today's agenda, it says that we back then talked about a passive park, and that it also indicated that we talked about turf. I don't think we did. The minutes don't indicate it. So that's why I rely heavily on and I'm assuming it's you along with the relevant staff, puts together the background. Background's really important for me, and I'm sure it is to the others as well, because we can go back and I didn't want to bother you guys. I didn't want to send another email about it, but I had to go track down, and it's funny. I wanted to thank the social media team, because I was like, hold on, that's on Facebook. They started doing a summary of these meetings, and so I typed in the word, I think I typed in library park 208 ferry, and found where Makiko back then had summarized that meeting, and it brought it up, and it summarized it therefore. So I'm like, oh, it was on that day. But I went to the city website and typed in 208 ferry. It's not easy. You can't. I never found it through the city website. I never found it by using the search feature. I know that's not anything maybe you can do anything about, but the background of these issues that come up, it's so important that they're accurate 100% and helpful to us to say, on this date, staff or council approved the lease. Because that's the other thing. It's kind of like we're here to approve a lease, but the previous minute said we approved the lease. We didn't approve a lease. We approved the mayor to go forward to pursue a lease. Mm-hmm. And so that wasn't accurate. We didn't approve a lease. And I guess my final question would be, I know at that meeting we approved $100,000 for internally spending on it, which I'm gathering, although it wasn't 100% clear to me after reading everything, that's not CRA money, was it? The $100,000 that, or was it? It was on top of?
We haven't spent that. That would have been to develop the park, but we had since brought that back and ended up tabling the bid for the turf because until we had the lease. In council, we've had the discussions, as you all know, over the last year 50 times. And as I updated council, hey, we're still working with the property owners at Ferry Road trying to work out of the lease agreement. So personally, I thought that I kept you all updated regularly on what was going on there. So as far as the background and everything, that's what we're here for. If you ever have a question, you can call or email me anytime and I'll find it. You don't have to search for anything. That's what I'll do that for you. But I regularly updated council on the Ferry Park lease every single meeting and where we are, how we were working through the insurance. We had some issues with insurance, and we were even in the budget workshop that we had on the 12th we talked about. Mm-hmm. There was a slide on there. So I didn't think this was any of a surprise for anybody.
Well, no, but also on those thoughts in mind, and I know it's contract management, it is, and there's always a lot of moving parts and pieces and things change, and You know, I know Mark Bethay's not here tonight, but I definitely have some questions about, you know, who sent who, what, when, because he was listed as exclusively representing the landlord, them, when he's our professional as well. So I kind of scratched my head at that, first of all. But 8 of 23, we started in 5 of 23, 8 of 23, that first lease came over from Mark, Realty House, over to us, and it already had the line through the part about the entertainment, the food trucks, all that kind of stuff. So it was an immediate concern on their part, it looked like, but we kept moving forward under the premise, under this saying that it's about insurance. I'm like, I represent contracts all the time, and if one of my customers has a very important thing in their contract that they want that swing set included, or they want that ceiling fan included, and then I see the contract come back and that swing set's lined through, I'm gonna say, hey, we need to deal with this. That's really important to my client. You know what I'm saying? So we had a line through of 8 of 23, and now we've had a year worth of your time, staff's time. I did ask Jeff today if they're, and I don't know if you know, Ms. Cobb, if you know, they've been billed for this process for not a year. They weren't involved from the beginning, which I understand that may be some hindsight. They will be involved in all future contract negotiations up front. Why weren't they? Why would you say they weren't involved early on? Why would you say y'all weren't involved early on in those lease negotiations? I think maybe another set of eyes, whether it was yours or Jeff's or someone else, going, hey guys, they've lined through the park, the entertainment, the food trucks. That might be something we need to nail down pretty quick. But you and Jeff have spent hours on this over
I asked Jeff, since you asked me earlier how many hours, and he was between January and the end of July, he was at about 15 hours. I haven't spent any hours on it because it's been with Jeff Burns. But
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how long it was worked on before it came to us. I don't.
Well, it was
never
received
asked.
5 of 23 was the, you know, there had to have been a
So we
discussion
came
prior
on-
to 5
We
of
came on
23.
in May. So I mean, I think I came on at the end of May, so we would have been brought on within a couple, well, I guess it was about 6 months later.
There was a discrepancy in what special events mean, because I had conversations with them over the phone many times. You know, what do you consider? I mean, we're not planning to bring Motley Crue in here and play at the library club. So, you know, it wasn't
Bon
going to be
Jovi.
like a big rock, you know, it was a rock concert, but, you know, maybe while the stage was in there, a one-man acoustic player or something like that, or even you know, farmers markets and things like that. So the back and forth with them was over what was a special event over the course of the next 6 or 8 months.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, and I appreciate the amount of effort. There was a lot of negotiations and different things that goes into it. But what really concerns me, and I would appreciate Mr. Butler bringing this up, so included in this proposed lease after that 3 years, they can pull it and still have the value, still have the improvements that we made to the property, minus if we pulled up the artificial grass. Right. And that concerns me there. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you for working on it. Everybody's worked on this for a long time, but sometimes you got to walk away from a deal. I think it's time to walk away.
Sounds like a motion.
You can make a motion.
So we need to make a motion to kill it, or just take no action on it? I'll just take no action on it.
I mean, I think a motion is preferable so that we can go back and advise the other party what was done. But if you want to take no action, that's fine. We'll tell them no action was taken.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to reject this lease proposal between the city of Fort Walton Beach and Gibson Properties Incorporated.
Second.
Been moved by Councilman Allegretto, seconded by Councilman Jeter to reject the lease agreement with Gibson Properties for the property at 208 Ferry Road Southeast. Further comment?
Yes, sir. So, again, I'm not 1,000% interested in the entire, I know we have a staff, I know we have attorneys, I know we have a city manager and all the rest of the exact process of how we got here, but here we are. right now. A lot of people have put a lot of time, effort, and energy into this. It could have been a great project, but those lease terms are absolutely incredible and incredibly bad. And I don't think, I mean, Mr. Walker, in that speech, the one thing that you referred to several times that I agree with you, a poison pill, it does seem like we don't want to do this. Okay, so, you know, I would also say that that property is not in a great state as it sits there on the ground. There's often trash and debris and things of that nature. I was really looking forward to this idea as, you know, making this a little area where everybody could chill and hang out and bring more business to our downtown community. But something one way or the other has got to be done with that property, whether the city gets to lease it or not. It is derelict as far as I'm concerned. There's constantly trash, pallets. It's a big sand lot. It's dangerous. It's many, many things. But one thing it's not going to be is leased by the city, hopefully, with this type of agreement. So I'm very much in favor of rejecting this, hoping that something could be worked out that doesn't involve those restrictive terms. But at the same time, something has to happen with that property. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from council?
A mere number of feet away, we have our Joe and Eddie's parcel, which is adjacent, it's a nice lot, same area, adjacent to our nice library complex, or museum, excuse me. So I'm hopeful that if this does not pass, that we don't lose the steam for the farmers markets and other items that we can do in the area.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I mean, you can't force someone into a deal. I mean, offering someone $1,000 a month for a piece of property that's been sitting there doing nothing for as long as I've probably been alive, and then putting a couple $100,000 into improvement in it, you know, I mean, I would tell you if it was me, I would do what I could just to get the improvement, much less the passive income every single month. So, you know, you don't want to want it so bad you put yourself in a bad situation. And I would love for nothing other than to have that area cleaned up, but it's a bad deal. And sometimes you gotta get up and walk away. I think this is one of those times for sure.
Mr. Walker?
Interestingly, right before 3 o'clock today, 3:30, I got a call from a business constituent, and he mentioned that he saw WEAR3 over there in their truck, and he saw them, and he went over and talked to them. And he said, "What's going on?" And they said, "Well, we understand that the city's getting ready to buy all of this property." I was like, "Whoa, that's interesting." So, you know, I had about an hour or two, and, you know, let's be honest, we're talking about a downtown redevelopment with around the mound, and even if not, just the new bridge construction and everything coming out. So I don't want to, you know, depends on who I was representing at the time. I mean, the Gibsons may have made a very smart move there to hold off and poison the pill to not give it. For $46,000 is their net return at 46 months, or 60 months, $60,000 is not, you know, a whole lot, but that piece of property right there, we also know strategically from the master plan, 2B is the approved one, but the Central Green looks pretty good too, and it's a key element of that. We've got the library, don't have this now, but it goes from 98 all the way to the back, matched up with our library there. It's a pretty sweet piece of property. I mean, whoever gets it in the end, I hope they do something fantastic with it. And I think if it gets exposed to the market, it probably will. I would have loved to seen a park over there with that stage, with those shades, although I wasn't able to vote on it. You guys passed it, and I was looking forward to seeing it. The renderings looked great, and I'd have loved to seen it there, but it's got a poison pill. Don't know why.
Any other comments from council? Anyone from the public wish to speak? Council, please vote. Does pass unanimously. Thank you, council. That brings us business item 10.4, TB 24010, artificial turf, park turf.
Yeah, I actually believe we would probably need to reject all bids based on the lease agreement.
Yeah, Juliana was just
Yes.
asking me that.
Yeah, we would need a motion to reject all the bids from ITB 24-0.
All right.
Make a motion. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Mead.
Second.
Second. Moved by Mr. Mead, seconded by Mr. Jeter to reject all bids for artificial turf to Turf Solutions for the library park project. Comment? Council, please vote.
Everyone voted and it's unanimous, I don't know why I didn't.
Okay. It does pass unanimously to do that. That'll bring us, 10.5 has been moved to 24 September. So 10.6, State of Florida Opioid Settlement Agreement Funds Distribution. Chief Page.
Mayor and Council, back on April 13th, 2021, the Mayor and City Attorney received a letter of the implementation from the Office of the Florida Attorney General about the settlement agreement for the opioids. The City Council, and I'm going through just real quick, on June 22nd, 2021, passed Resolution 2021-7 of Fort Walton Beach, which enter us into the settlement agreement. And since then, we hadn't taken a lot of action on the opioid settlement agreement. The opioid settlement agreement provided, it's a settlement from the several pharmacies that provide opioid drugs during the opioid epidemic that is still going on, but it was during the prescription epidemic. And a settlement was reached with the state of Florida and several of the opioid providers. The county, the city all received proceeds from this. The county has put forth a very robust plan for implementation. There's a schedule that was attached in the backup documentation, Schedule B, which has the allowable usages for the opioid settlement money. There are very limited usages for the opioid settlement money, and the staff's recommendation is to allow the county to assign our proceeds of the settlement to the county to use for programs such as our post-overdose support team and other programs that benefit both the city of Fort Walton Beach and the county as a whole.
All right. Questions from council for Chief Page? Seeing none, anyone from the public wish to comment on this? Seeing none? Council, can we get a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to recommend authorization for city manager to execute assignment of city county funds from the opioid litigation settlements to Okaloosa County for the betterment of the community with programs such as the post-overdose support team, which works directly with Fort Beach Police Department.
Thanks, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Walker. Been moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Walker to authorize the city manager to execute a plan for distribution of the settlement agreement funds and to submit the forms to the State Attorney General's office. Further comment?
No, sir.
Council, please vote. Does pass unanimously. Thank you, Council. And that will bring us to item 11, City Manager Reports. Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, just a couple of quick updates. We have, most of you guys have seen over there at Ferry Park, the fitness court's complete. They should be starting the shade sale. We got a notification this week. It's setting poles. The pickleball courts across the bridge there are scheduled to be resurfaced, the paint and the nets and everything going in the week of the 9th of September. So we're planning when both of those projects are done, planning a ribbon cutting. We'll keep you all posted what day and time that'll be. So we may need some volunteers to jump on the fitness court and try it out, maybe race. And then
Sign David up.
Get into a pickleball contest. As you can see in the back, there's a lot of meetings coming up in September. We've got the budget meeting. We've got a regular council meeting at 4 on September 10th, followed with our budget hearing number 1, which is tentative millage rate, and also the CRA meeting as well on September 10th following that. Fast forwarding to the 24th of September, we have a regular meeting at 4 p.m. followed by budget hearing number 2 at 6 p.m.
All right, thank you. Is that it?
That's it.
All right, thank you. Ms. Cobb?
I do not have anything beyond what is in the litigation update report, so unless you have questions, I'm good.
Questions? Thank you. All right, Mayor and Council, final comments. I believe we started with you, Mr. Smith.
Just real quick, wanted, you need to relax over there. I wanted to see if we could get that big expensive barrier fence that every time I drive by Ferry and out to Destin and it's flapping in the wind on the fence, if we can get someone to go out there and secure that thing back down. A lot of money, TBC paid for it, but still a lot of money. It would be nice if it was secured back to the fence, and I don't know if we've got an ETA on when that thing's going to be
We've actually
solved or fixed.
At least made contact with the
Yeah, I drove me crazy over there. Yeah, we talked to Fast Lines. We went ahead and we got some like zip ties basically, and we had Elisa put some on it herself, and then a couple of I think some facilities guys, Jerry Gunn and them, were reattaching it last week too, and I think Rich Arms, I think code enforcement was down there. Reattaching it, part of the problem we had was the weeds and the vegetation on the lot. We actually had code enforcement notice to them. They cut the lot down, but then they left the weeds that were running through the fence. They were also pushing on that, so we got that cleaned up. And actually, Candace downtown there, she was down there volunteering some of her time in the last couple of days, cleaning up right along the fence line and doing some cleanup. So we've been in contact with one of the representatives for the property owner almost daily lately, and we went ahead and said, well, some zip ties.
It is zip tied back down?
Yeah.
Because it was blowing around this weekend.
Okay, I'll check again. I know.
I'll be honest with you, I almost went out and got zip ties. I zip tied down myself.
I'll drive
nuts for months.
I'll drive by tomorrow because I know. I said some of the facilities guys and one or two of my people were down there within the last week reattaching it. So we're gonna. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walker.
Yeah, just one thing. Got the letter from Mr. Sermons regarding Major Oser and the City Park and Recreation scheduling. I know it was, what was it, last week or so that we got it, so I know it's early on, but with the conclusion there, what I've attempted to, from the letter, I've attempted to assure Mr. Oser is that a letter to the City Council requesting a clear administrative plan to remedy the disparate treatment of RAD and other current and future teams. What are your plans there to craft a non-disparate scheduling recreation to meet the request of this letter as presented by Mr. Oser?
We developed a policy at council's direction and did that months ago, and it's complete.
It's final, and so that the understanding is that, has he had a response that there's one in place and that's the one he's obviously referencing, is that it's causing, the one that's in place is causing a disparate impact on a citizen, business owner in the community?
He wants Monday night to play volleyball. He has, somebody's using it Monday nights. He has Tuesday through Sunday to use it, and he's met with the recreation staff and has been notified that he can reserve it any of the other 6 nights. It was reserved by a calendar submittal from ECSS, so he doesn't like the policy apparently.
Well, it's not, I don't know that it's he doesn't like it. He's pointing out that its disparate impact upon Major Oser is happening because he doesn't have the benefits and privileges that have been assigned to the competing Emerald Coast social sports. That's the disparate impact, is that one entity is getting special or favored treatment while another one's not. That's the disparate. It's not about, can I get the schedule? Can I get on the calendar? It's that two entities are being treated differently by a government organization. And that's what he's telling us, is that he feels confident that we will have one that doesn't cause a disparate impact. And I will request of you to work with council to come up with one that is non-disparate in its impact.
I did already. It's complete.
I think we do not see it the same way as this attorney, and I haven't responded yet, but Jeff and I met about it today. But the way we see it is it's been a first come, first serve situation from the get-go. And the way that it's looked at by staff is that the entity that's currently on Monday nights was there first in time. And now, if this entity wants it from Tuesday to Sunday or any of those nights, they're first in time for that. And when the third entity comes in, they'll be third in time for that. So instead of looking at it as year by year, staff has looked at the bigger picture. And that, I think, is a point of contention between the parties that I'd probably need to reach out to the attorney about. But we don't have the position that we're treating anybody with any kind of disparate treatment.
Well, the policy actually describes the disparate
Yeah, and
treatment,
I think we need
doesn't
to
it?
clarify the policy a little bit because it doesn't say it the way we're saying it, but Jeff and I met today and thought, I mean, am I summarizing kind of?
You're exactly right.
So maybe we'll modify it to clarify that. I think that's the intent of the policy.
I'm talking about the specific pointing out of the Emerald Coast Social Sports League receiving preferential treatment. Preferential is,
They were here first is how they saw it.
oh, so since they were, I got you.
That's
Gotcha.
what I'm saying.
Okay.
We probably could clarify the policy to spell that out, but that was why they were getting, how long have they been here, Jeff?
10 plus years, 14 years.
12 to 14 was what, was when you reached out to them back then. So that's the position that everyone is on right now. So I understand that. We'll see where it goes next. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Alberto.
Nothing, sir.
Mr. Berry.
Yes, I have something here. I'd like to take a moment of silence in honor of former Mayor Anderson passing, because I'm thinking of, I always think of him whenever we have the trim notices, if you don't mind. And can we have a moment of silence? Thank you. Okay, and then also, have we taken care of scheduling the polls, the election polls for October and November?
Yes. October 20th to November 4th, I believe the dates are. Yes.
Okay.
The paperwork's been filled out.
I talked to Mr. Lux a few weeks ago, and I talked to Kimberly about this and Ms. Kopp about this also. According to Florida statute, there's two Florida statutes. We must make public buildings available for elections. Must. There's no question about it. And I was told by Mr. Lux that he was denied at first for early voting, which we just had, and then possibly for the primary. We had the room available for primary elections, but the early voting before then was not used. And then had to really work hard to get the end of October for early voting, and then November 1st. Can we put that on our calendar, on the city's calendar, for years on, to make sure that our rooms are available, which is the all-purpose room there at the rec center?
Yeah, he requested it once every 4 years on the presidential election. He said.
But not.
No, he doesn't need it. He just said, hey, it's only once every 4 years. I talked with Paul about a year ago. We went and looked at a couple of places. I said, man, this place has a lot of activity going on. What about the library meeting room? He goes, yeah, that would be pretty good, but it's just kind of out of the way. Anything at City Hall, the auditorium. So we looked at a few different places, and then he just recently got back with us, and his staff will make the paperwork's already been turned in with the county.
Okay. Well, I finally talked to him this week, and he says he's finally settled it. But he was really, really upset whenever he came and asked for it to be on the schedule, and he was denied. So I just want to make sure that.
Well, he wasn't denied. We were trying to offer other areas for him to use. We weren't denying the city facilities. Said, hey, there's other places you can use. issues. He said, well, the library, they might as well just go to Shalimar if they got to go all the way to the library meeting room. So, and that was about all that weekend when Kim and I were back and forth. But then we decided, okay, well, we'll make it work at the rec center. We'll have to cancel and move some programs around for a couple weeks, but we'll make it work. So we were accommodating with it. We were just trying to offer some other areas at city facilities that could possibly work, so we didn't have to put the rec center down.
Yeah, because I asked him about that. I says, because I thought of the library, the all-purpose room there in the library also, and he says, this one here is our precinct, 22 and 41. And this is where we've voted as far as I can remember, except when we were rebuilding the rec center, and then we had it at St. Mary's. I think that was 41 that they sent over that way. So we're not going to have any more problems.
Yeah, I've talked to him a few times since then. It'll be in 24, 28, 32, 36.
I'll be dead by then.
What? It's only 10 years.
well, 36, yeah. Oh, no, truly though. But my concern is that we don't have any more, because I'm a bailiff. I'm a traveling bailiff. And I thought, well, we're not going to have. So I never. It was the weekend before. It was the night before we were supposed to have that early voting, and I went over there and I go, how come we don't? Yeah.
Based on the counts for the presidential election is why they need the rec center, because he said there could be anywhere from 1,200 to 1,400 a day.
Well, this last election we had more percentage voters. Just this last election, usually we have like maybe 12, 14%. We had almost 25% voters. Okay.
Yes, sir. No, it's late. I'll be quick. But Chief Beige, we're on the code enforcement, back on replacing whoever we got to replace to get. I mean, is that the next plan?
Finalize that 100% yet. We're still investigating the incident that took place. Once we finalize it, we'll take employment action if necessary. Yeah. And we intend to have a person there as quickly as possible to replace him.
Okay. I know it's a process, but we plan on replacing it as soon as it was doing good. It was working how we all expected it to. So let's not let it go too long, right? I mean, we're on it.
Correct.
This morning at TDC, I think it's going to come out Thursday or Friday, but I think it's okay to say. But everybody know the Oriskany over in Pensacola is one of the largest artificial reefs, but some TDC funds just secured over 1,000-foot boat that will be on its way down here. Hopefully it will be done by next summer, but we will have the largest artificial reef, bigger than Pensacola, so that'd be really cool.
Fantastic.
Yes, sir.
Glad to hear
That's
it.
all.
Mr. Meade?
Sun's starting to set earlier, lights on Ferry Park, are we getting closer?
Yeah, we actually, Tiffany, can you talk about?
Yes, we are getting closer. We have a lighting plan. We did meet with the group that presented us with the lighting plan. We have a meeting with them next Wednesday, I believe it is, to pick out the actual fixture, and then we will start putting them in place.
Thank you.
They'll be good.
Some people walk their dogs after work.
With a leash on. Leash, hopefully. Yeah, a leash on.
Back to Mr. Alberto. You mentioned a workshop for the called short-term rentals. Perhaps I would hope that maybe we could have that in maybe 45, 30 days-ish, so that we can keep the momentum going, and then at that time we can discuss enforcement, but also anything else that we can add to our quiver to encourage enforcement. But I'd love to see it. It's multiple places. If there's something we can do, I'd like to be a part of it. I'd like to come early or whatever I can do. I think my time is limited. So I'd love to have that happen. It was a pleasure to meet Ms. Graham of the library. I know she's in town. That's great. The livery ordinance, I know, generally speaking, as a resident, I was hoping we'd have a short, medium, and long-range goal, short being an ordinance in place, albeit not perfect. That's been in place for some time. I think we're working on enforcing that. Medium, are we coming close to having our refined, better, or
second ordinance? I know Mr. Smith's been taking the lead on that.
I think that we have some ideas to add, and I believe at some point, you know, I mean, we've been trying to bring it, but these agendas have been so slam-packed with stuff on it, trying to find a place to put it in. But we have an ordinance, and we have probably some recommendations that we want to add to the ordinance, but obviously we probably want to talk about that up here.
Yes.
So it's just getting it on an agenda, and I don't imagine that it'll probably end up on any of the next two agendas. So,
Are you ready for it to be added to an agenda?
yes, I am, but I probably wouldn't want it stacked onto our budget meeting agendas. I would probably, you know, it just seems like every time we got a chance to put it on an agenda, something big has come up, and it's like, all right, well, that's more important at this time, so let's knock that out and let's get it on the next one, and then the same thing happens again. So, but I think after we get through the two budget agendas, our schedule really opens up in October to be able to kind of maybe finalize this stuff. And I've kind of been communicating with her that although we wanted it done sooner, we still do have something in place currently, so it's not the end-all be-all if we have to push it back a little bit.
I spoke with Mr. Forsetti earlier. I know they've been focusing on different types of enforcement of this, but it sounds like they're also pushing, I think the number was 18 current operators that don't have their, something as simple as their applications filled out. I know that's not the right word, but so either way, so hopefully we're working on enforcement, and then that would be good if we could move towards that. If there's anything I can do or any public meetings or whatnot, obviously that would be nice. And then,
Thank you, sir. Mr. Schmidt?
All right, yes, I had to resign to run for school board, and that was effective, it's going to be effective in November to have to resign because that was by law an irrevocable letter of resignation. But I wanted to share with y'all, as y'all may have already been getting contacted by some other folks that are interested in filling that vacancy. I just want to share with y'all that I have all intentions to apply to fill that vacancy to finish out my term. So wanted to give y'all that information as people approach y'all on filling that vacancy, so y'all have that information to do what you think is best with that information. Also, too, I want to appreciate the conversation as well as the actions taken with the workshop. Recently, someone approached me, the Anastasia or Alexandria, there was similar concern that it wasn't an Airbnb house, but it was almost like a group home that had a BTR, that just so that we can flush some of these things out to empower staff and give them clarity that, hey, council's got your back to go enforce some things that we can by law enforce. So thank you all for that action taken tonight. And then finally, you know, I know there's a lot of conversation about, you know, parcels going out of business downtown and as if it's like a doomsday in downtown and things like that. But I think we all envisioned as we prepared for this bridge, there was going to be some downtimes. And I think it's good for overall some new investors coming in or what that looks like. We already have some recent investors over the past year that are buying a large portion of some land by the bridge, as well as the old hotel, Magnolia Bay, or that as well. So I mean, there are some things that people are believing in the future of downtown Fort Walton, as well as the future of Fort Walton as a whole, and that excites me. Even though we do, it's unfortunate that KC's and Enlightened Studios, I believe. I mean, it's never good to see anybody go out of business, but I want to make sure we're all encouraged to continue the downtown master plan, continue the around the mound, and obviously the bridge will be continued. Because there's places like Pink Coyote Ice Cream that's opening up. It's really, really good. If you haven't gotten a chance to check it out, go check it out right there across from the post office. But still encourage, I want to encourage everyone else to stay optimistic about the future of our downtown as well as the city of Fort Walton Beach. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And I've already said my piece, so it's late. Let's go home. Let's go. All right.